After-hours football debate for poachers, private eyes...
Could I ask you something personal?
...and pole dancers.
I might market for business, love.
Mike Graham's been all three at some point in his career.
Oh, really, you great big sweaty bush idiot?
I'll tell you what, you were a better pole dancer than presenter, I can tell you that.
The Two Mikes on talkSPORT.
Farmers are now enlisting drones to do the job of a sheepdog. And the drones will, in fact, believe it or not, be shaped like sheepdogs. But so they'll be
flying sheepdogs.
They'll be flying sheepdogs.
Won't that scare the hell out of the sheep?
No.
This is talkSPORT Extra Time. We are the Two Mikes. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. It's time to say a very, very good morning. Another day of incredible revelations on the FIFA story to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
Yeah, morning, Mike. Great to see you. May I just have a word about your diction before we move on in the show tonight? Yeah, well...
What's wrong with my diction?
Well, your diction is always questionable, but it's not your diction, it's your content of your diction.
What's wrong with the content of my diction?
Well, how long is it...
It's coming from a man who can't pronounce anybody's name.
Hang on, excuse me.
Yeah.
How long is it since I heard the expression on air, singing like a canary?
How long is it? I don't know. When did you hear it last?
About 13 years ago.
13 years?
Because then that's when we banned cliches on talkSPORT.
Really?
I've actually banned expressions like that.
Last night you were...
Singing like a canary.
What's wrong with singing like a canary?
Do you think that's original? Singing
I'll
like
tell you why. Well, I'll tell you why it's pertinent.
Sing like,
I'll tell you why it's pertinent, right? I'm not the one that does impressions. If you want to do an impression of a canary, you're more than welcome. The whole point about it being pertinent is that the phrase "singing like a canary" is like a phrase from an old gangster movie, right? And that's what the FIFA story is developing into. Because if you listen to that clip there from the guy from the New York Times who broke the story, right, you would understand that they're going after the mid-level guys, then they're going to go after the high-level guys.
Singing like a canary,
and they're all singing like canaries, and that's what Chuck Blazer's doing, and that's why all of these capos and all of these soldiers, and then eventually the Godfather is going to end up being stitched up by the people who are already in custody.
So we got Singing Like a Canary, and then we got like a script from a Mario Puzo film.
Exactly,
I mean,
even though he didn't make films.
Is your imagination now so turgid? Is your thought pattern so stuck in treacle?
No, it isn't, no.
It's like having a pair of welly boots on and walking through treacle, your mind, at the moment.
Well, I would imagine that's what happens.
Best you can come up with.
I imagine that's what happens in your locked room.
Is that the best you can come up with?
But I think the best thing you can do is to, instead of having a go at me for somehow using the wrong phraseology, why don't you just update us on what's been happening in the last few hours? Because there'll be a lot of people who have only just tuned in and are only going to find out now from us exactly what Chuck Blazer's been saying.
Well, Chuck Blazer, now, it's quite interesting here because...
He does bear an uncanny resemblance to you, it must be said. The number of people on Twitter who keep sending pictures to me saying, are you sure Mike Parry isn't still in football?
I think it's disgraceful, isn't it? On a serious note for a minute, Chuck Blazer hasn't been seen for 8 months. He's been treated for colonic cancer in a, sanitarium, in a sanitarium in New York City, apparently. So you wonder whether this man has done a deal with God to purge his soul, literally, and rid himself...
He's done a deal with the US attorneys. Who he's done a deal with.
Yeah, exactly. But rid himself of guilt. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know,
he may well be right.
Attempt to clear his conscience before he dies. But what's happening is that we now have the confession document from Chuck Blazer to the American authorities, to the FBI.
Yeah.
Lots of it redacted already, so we don't know the inner details.
And they've done that, of course, because there are certain people that may be named in those papers who they're still after.
Absolutely. And the reason for that, we think, is because the allegations about accepting bribes to try and influence the placement of competitions goes back now to at least 1998.
Yeah.
And 98, of course, was the French one. That was where the French became the world champions for the first time, obviously on French soil. And you have to wonder now the extent to which corruption has mired FIFA, and for how many years? You really do.
Well, you do, because, I mean, if it goes all the way back to 98, which, I mean, as we suspected, it certainly went back to 2010 and South Africa. Whether it went back to the one before that, 2006, or whether it went back to 2002, we don't know. But you'd have to say, odds on, there's going to be some suggestion that money changed hands and decisions were made based not entirely on footballing reasons.
Yes, no, it's absolutely right. What I think is most interesting is that, did you see that one of the developments today was that Interpol posted pictures and, to use one of your hackneyed and rather cliquish sort of...
clichés. Well, even though you don't use clichés.
Cliché expression. It was like the Wanted poster in a Wild West movie.
It was.
And there was a wall of them, and they were all stuck up there. What I can't find out is, where is Jack Warner?
Yeah, well, I thought they had him, as it were, so I don't know why... I don't know why an Interpol warrant would have been issued for a guy who's already been taken into custody.
And 3 of the guys on the Interpol warrant are in jail in Switzerland. Right. So I wasn't quite sure of the...
Well, maybe here's the reason why they've done it.
It was a publicity...
here's maybe the reason why they've done it. If these guys are fighting extradition, which they will be doing, if there's an Interpol warrant out for your arrest, then the chances of you getting a win in that situation is minimal, isn't it? So
it's a good point.
That's why they've done it.
Has old Jack Warner gone on the run then? Because of course his territory is the Caribbean and around there. And
Trinidad.
I don't know. Yeah, Trinidad. No, he's on the run around the Caribbean islands or whatever. But anyway, look.
Well, there was some doubt, wasn't there? Because when he was originally arrested, and the story was put out that he posted $2.5 million bail, right? And then the following day, there was a story that said that he'd been in custody overnight. So it's all very strange. I mean, I think the difficulty of not being on the ground in Trinidad, you don't know precisely what's happening. But I think he's in Trinidad. I don't think there's any doubt as to where he is.
Yeah. Do you remember the cricket guy who's now in jail as well because he started sort of embezzling hundreds of millions of dollars and giving it to cricket in this country,
Oh yeah,
flying
the guy
it in
from Texas.
Yeah, and he became king of some Caribbean island because he ran the bank there and everything. He was flying in glass boxes full of $100 million.
Turks and Caicos or something
Turks and Caicos or something like that. I mean, he was exactly the same. When the cops moved on him, he was still a free man to move around in the Caribbean. Or Caribbean.
Well, the Caribbean is the American pronunciation.
It is, yeah.
Which is allowable if you're American.
Yeah, that's right. To move around in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Until, the moment came when they said, no, actually, this guy is a crook now, and they jailed him.
Yeah, right.
But until then, it was. I suppose the idea is that, well, you can only go so far around Trinidad, because it's an island and all that kind of stuff, and therefore, is there any point in I don't know, detaining these people whilst the inquiries are going on?
Perhaps. I mean, it's all very murky, isn't it? And also, these guys, for a very long time, I would imagine, been used to doing pretty much exactly what they want in their home territories. They're so wealthy.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
They're king of their empires. I mean, the cricket guy we were talking about, what's his name? Stanhope or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And, I mean, he actually owned the local bank, he owned all the property and all that kind of thing, so nobody ever regarded him as a criminal. And I suppose Jack Warner and the allegations against him have very little effect on the people who have benefited from Mr. Warner's largesse over the years.
Well, listen to what Mr. Blazer has to say. Beginning in or around 2004 and continuing through 2011, I and others on the FIFA Executive Committee agreed to accept bribes in conjunction with the selection of South Africa as the host nation for the 2010 World Cup. He also added, I and others agreed to accept bribes and kickbacks in conjunction with the broadcast and other rights to the 1996, 98, 2000, 2002 and 2003 Gold Cups. Now, these are the regional championships in various countries for national teams, I presume in CONCACAF.
Yeah.
Of course, the other thing that happened over the last 24 hours that we should mention is South Africa came out in the form, I think, of one of their either sports ministers or finance ministers to say, yes, there was a payment of £10 million.
But it was nothing to do with
bribery.
bribery.
It wasn't a bribe.
No.
And after what we were told last night by that South African journalist, you just kind of fall about laughing at this point.
Well, except for the fact that the way finances are arranged internationally between continents, and these two continents here are South Africa and South America. Yeah. South Africa have every right, I think, to say, well, that was a payment as a put-down to us acquiring the World Cup, but that was to help people in football in South America as part of the deal to bring the World Cup to South Africa. They thought that was perfectly legitimate.
But that, under normal international law, that's called a bribe. That's why it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, but they don't interpret it as that, you see.
It doesn't matter.
What they're saying is, they're saying, look, we enjoyed we were the beneficiaries of FIFA expanding the global reach of football and putting FIFA money around, and all we were doing was sending a bit of that back to South America to help them in the same way. That's what they're kind of saying.
Well, that's what they were saying, but unfortunately that's not really, and it's not really good enough, is it?
Well, it's certainly not a definition the FBI has of distribution of
what about?
money.
It's like the guy saying that because paintings have changed hands among some of these characters as well. And I gave this guy a painting as a gift because I thought that was a nice thing that he did to vote for me to get the World Cup.
The greatest image of all this is the picture of Chuck Blazer's cat inside the apartment in Trump Tower, where only the cat lived.
Right.
I tell you what I thought was amazing. You know what the rent for that apartment was?
$4,000 a month, wasn't it?
It's not much, is it? $1,000 a week? I could have lived there for that.
Well, $4,000 a month is quite a lot of money. £4,000.
I'd have $4,000 it was, wasn't it? And when I lived and worked in New York, if I'd have known it was only $4,000 a month, $1,000 a week to stay in Trump Tower, I might have got an apartment there.
Well, it wasn't your money, was it? I mean, you were just wasting everybody else's money.
What do you mean?
Well, when you were living there, you were having it paid for by your company, weren't you?
Well, I was such a valued employee. I got paid very well there, and I didn't have to pay any tax, and I got a great exchange
Why didn't you
deal.
have to pay any tax? Are you sure you want to talk about tax?
Not really.
No, I wouldn't.
It became rather painful a couple of years later when I tried
because you were supposed to be paying tax, but you didn't.
Yes, you see, I thought I was being pretty clever here. What I did is I took what's called the mid-Atlantic position.
Yeah.
I told the Inland Revenue in Britain I was paying tax in America, and I told the IRS, basically, the Internal Revenue Service in America, I was paying tax in Britain.
Yeah. So you lied.
And about 5 years later, after a FIFA-style investigation, not by the FBI, but the international tax authorities, bill suddenly landed on my doorstep of something like £137,000 for taxes, which they think I should have paid.
And did you then pay it?
Well, there's a bit of negotiating that had to go on for the next 2 years.
Absolutely
but
shocking.
It still managed to render me into poverty without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, well, you've got to pay taxes.
That was only my only period
of being part of a democracy is you have to pay taxes.
It was my only period of poverty as an adult, and it was a humiliating time when I was selling furniture to pay the Inland Revenue.
Well, talk some more about that. Have you seen the time, though? Because, look, we're running late already. We're going to talk to a Russian guy today.
A Russian man?
We want to get the Russian perspective.
His name Igor?
His name, I think, is Alexei, actually.
Alexei Yarashevsky. I have a friend called Igor in Moscow. He is literally the last living communist. He's the last living commie. Right. He wants communism back.
Have you seen the time?
He wants to resurrect the Berlin Wall.
Does he? Oh, well, maybe he could get you involved in that. We are the Two Mics. This is talkSPORT. Loads more coming up. talkSPORT Extra Time. We are the Two Mics. Of course, there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. I discovered some figures today on the old FIFA story, which I think will make you absolutely cringe.
Make your eyes
knowing
water.
as you are a man who cares about money so much. Profit from the 2014 World Cup, right? Revenue, 4.8 billion. What are you doing now?
Excuse me. Sorry.
What's wrong with you?
No, sorry. It's the atmosphere.
Some kind of hay fever.
Too much dust. Yeah, a bit of hay fever.
Too much dust.
Yeah, I feel summer came on today, so I...
I see you wearing shorts,
I dressed appropriately, but I've got a bit of the hay fever stuff. You can get hay fever in middle age. I'm not yet middle-aged in my definition, but it could be oncoming.
No, you're beyond middle age now.
No, go on, please. No, go on.
$4.8 billion in revenue, right? Now, this is the one that made my hair curl. £2.2 billion in expenses. Now, even in your heyday, as a man who spent an awful lot of time in bars and restaurants and visiting various sporting activities, right?
Are you mad?
I mean, practically half of the revenue they've used up in expenses, and their net profit even after that is $2.6 billion.
Yeah, but
that's extraordinary.
Yeah, but they would say those expenses were in fact spending money on developing football around the world. They don't regard expenses as being bottles of champagne.
No, these are expenses. No, these are expenses just on the World Cup.
Yes, I know, but they do regard it as facilities for children in South Africa when this World Cup was in South Africa.
I'm a bit worried you're becoming a bit of an apologist for these characters.
No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm wholly condemnatory of them. But what I'm saying is, this is their definition of expense is not our definition of expense. That's all I'm trying to say to you. Now, FIFA's all very well and all that kind of stuff. The big story tonight in football is Jack Wilshere. If the FA have now charged him, which they have,
bringing a game into disrepute
for his disgraceful behaviour, then he must surely get dropped from the England squad that's got to play two internationals starting with Ireland on Sunday afternoon.
If anybody in English football had a backbone, if, for example, Greg Dyke was anywhere near as excited about looking after his own sort of house, as it were, than he is about sorting out FIFA's house.
Yes.
And I don't know whether you saw the Qataris making a statement a little bit to that effect today, saying maybe Greg Dyke should concentrate on getting the English football team to play a little bit better instead of trying to take the World Cup away from Qatar.
They did, basically. They also issued a very strong statement saying the World Cup will not be taken off us. So they're threatening to withhold all the natural gas that they hold, which is about 80% of all the world's natural gas or something like that. Who knows? But yes, go on, please.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say was, yes, I think it's time. I mean, I made a very sort of impassioned plea when I was talking to Andy and Jason there on the sports bar, where I basically said, why should football be the one sport where, you have to take your children along and you have to be subjected to horrible swearing, horrible behaviour. Yeah. People say, oh, well, that's because that's what real football fans do. I can tell you, I got an awful lot of action on Twitter from people supporting me saying, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be like that. Yeah. Why on earth should people like Jack Wilshere epitomise what it is that people should expect when they go to football?
Now, during that discussion you had, somebody put it to you, well, why wasn't Theo Walcott treated in the same way when he antagonised the Spurs fans? Well, for two reasons. To start off with, when Jack Wilshere made his filthy-mouthed outburst, right, in the wake of winning the FA Cup, there wasn't a Spurs fan in sight, because not many Spurs fans go to see Arsenal bringing the FA Cup home.
I think he was gesticulating towards the Spurs fans, wasn't he?
No, there weren't any Spurs fans.
What do you mean there weren't any Spurs fans?
There weren't any Spurs fans when Jack Wilshere
they were, because they were all booing him.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
No, they weren't.
You don't have to rewrite history.
No, I'm telling you, the people around that bus are Arsenal fans, right? Now, the reason Theo Walcott didn't get punished for anything was because, A, he was on a stretcher responding.
Sorry, were you talking about Wilshere before?
Yeah, Wilshere,
My apologies. I thought you were saying when Walcott did it, there were no Spurs fans.
If you would listen to me, please, if you would listen to me.
Well, you're very jumbled tonight.
No, I'm not jumbled tonight.
I think it's the heat.
No, it's not the heat. It's just your brain is like one of those Rubik cubes and it's in the wrong place at the moment. Now then, what I'm saying is when Jack Wilshere was on the bus, there are no Spurs fans who go to see Arsenal bring the FA Cup home.
True.
I've had to repeat that to you because you didn't hear it the first time.
I accept that.
So therefore, it was a gratuitous insult to Spurs fans who weren't even there.
Yeah.
Theo Walcott was being taken off on a stretcher.
Yeah.
Normal human compassion dictates that when a man is being carried off on a stretcher, you don't antagonise him. You actually might give him a round of applause.
Well, they're not throwing coins at him, though.
Throwing coins at him, absolutely right. So all Theo did was gesture with his fingers 2-0, because that was the score at the time, to the Spurs fans.
And with a very big smile on his face.
With a big smile on his face. Yeah. That is not repulsive behaviour.
No.
That is part of the atmosphere of a football ground when the Spurs fans are trying to antagonise Theo Walcott.
But isn't that the point? Some people don't seem to know the difference between what is acceptable behaviour and what is not, because they're either blinded by...
That's the difference between Theo Walcott and Jack Wilshere. I want you to reach out to our listeners, because I want support for the Jack Wilshere situation. I think Jack Wilshere should be barred for playing for England until the outcome of his disciplinary hearing, which he has to go through now because the FA have charged him with behaviour unsuitable for the game in this country, unsuitable for a professional football in this country.
Well,
please give us a call.
Yes, do please give us a call. 08717 22 3344. I'd also love to hear from anyone. Very few of you on Twitter actually seem to have these views that it's okay for football and footballers to behave sort of in a thuggish manner.
No,
it's
not.
Okay for football to have this reputation that this is the one sport where real men go and they vent and they say terrible things, and because that's all part of the working class tradition of football. Absolute cobblers. Premier League football is now entertainment as much as going to the movies is entertainment, as much as going to the theatre is entertainment, as much as going to see anything live is an entertainment. And I think footballers and some people in the crowd ought to be responsible. 08717 22 3344. According to the back page of the Sun, Jack Wilshere is fuming over his FA charge.
But this is another ludicrous part of this.
He's apparently offended.
Issue.
He's offended that this has been picked up on. Now, if he doesn't want to get in trouble with the FA, then why does he keep his mouth shut?
Well, why doesn't he behave like a civilised human being instead of taking advantage of the fact that he's a highly paid footballer, an underperforming highly paid footballer, by the way? Everybody agrees that the Jack Wilshere bandwagon, in terms of his progression as a footballer, stopped about 3.5 years ago, hasn't restarted, and the longer it goes on, the more difficult it will be for him to restart it.
Exactly.
Jack Wilshere will never become a great footballer. Somebody was talking earlier about him being, the greatest midfielder of his era, and that's never going to happen.
No.
Jack Wilshere's attitude towards his job is, it's great earning $100,000 a year for just playing football. I don't intend to give it anything more than the absolute minimum required to perform as a professional footballer. I can see that in the attitude the boy has to life and to football, OK? And if he thinks that I'm being unduly harsh to him, I would say the image you portray, Mr. Wilshere, Jack, whatever, in your attitude to your job and to life can only give people the impression that you feel very self-satisfied in what you have done over the last 3.5 years, but a lot of people are very, very sorry that you seem to have wasted the ability to be something special, because you're not special.
Well, he also seems to take every opportunity to get himself into the newspapers for the wrong reasons, and that's the other problem. I mean, I had a conversation earlier, just before the show started, with an Arsenal fan called Dan, and he says that...
Dan the Arsenal man.
Dan the Arsenal man, and he sent me a tweet that had come from Paul Gascoigne, who says, I don't understand Spurs fans fans fuss over Wilshere's comments. He loves Arsenal, so is bound to hate Spurs. Spurs fans should be more worried about being embarrassed by Arsenal every season. As for Jack having a few beers, good luck to him. It never did me any harm during my career. I was actually drunk when I signed for Spurs. Now, if anybody wants to raise Paul Gascoigne's name in this particular argument and say that drinking during his career didn't do his career any harm, then they're clearly absolutely and utterly barking up the wrong tree.
Mad.
And Dan actually accepted that. He said, no, I know that the drink destroyed one of our best players ever, such a tragedy, something you'd think young players like Jack would learn from. And the thing is, Jack Wilshere doesn't seem to be learning from it. I said to him, he doesn't appear to be learning much, does he? No. Shame, because he could have been a great player. And Dan says he has time on his side. That's what I'm hanging on to, because he's not far away from becoming the real deal, fingers crossed. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
What responsibility do the other Arsenal players have to trying to curb Jack Wilshere's behaviour? Because it's embarrassing for the club, it's embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
And,
well, I'm not sure it's so much about them as it is about Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger seems to have got this idea in his head that, all of his players are, young geniuses, and depending on which way he puts them all together, they will be very, very good on the football pitch, and what they do off it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, on the same back page, they've got Wojciech Szczesny caught smoking cigarettes again. Now, this was a guy who was apparently smoking cigarettes in the showers, right?
Sure.
And he was sort of supposedly told off. It's supposed to be against Arsenal's principles. It's supposed to be against Arsenal's policies. Arsene Wenger has said in the past that, he's going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
But he's a member of the Polish squad when he's doing this.
That doesn't matter.
He's over in Poland because who are they playing? Georgia, I think it is. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a problem now for the Polish manager. That's a problem.
Well, no, it's a problem for Arsene Wenger as well.
I'm not sure it is because it
means that Arsene Wenger hasn't done enough to stop it from happening.
Yeah, but all I would say is that Szczesny is now post-season as far as his Arsenal responsibilities are concerned. I don't object to footballers having a cigarette. If they have it in their own time, in private, if they're not broadcasting it to impressionable youngsters and all that kind of stuff, that's entirely up to them. We know from the past that people like Billy Bremner used to be avaricious smokers, and it was a fairly normal part of the game in those days.
We live in a different time now,
of course
Mike,
we do.
and you have to realise that. I mean, football has moved on.
Of course I realise that. I realise everything.
Some footballers haven't moved on, and I don't think, being an athlete, it's really a very good idea to be smoking cigarettes and getting drunk. It just doesn't seem to fit in with the image.
Well, the getting drunk thing is a no-no for any athlete.
Well, that's what I think. 08717 22 33 44. We are the two Mikes. This is talkSPORT. We'll take your calls next. Why have you asked for this music?
I haven't asked for it. I was going to ask you, why are we playing Fawlty Towers?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I can't make... I don't know.
Well, who's in Fawlty Towers?
John Cleese.
Yeah, and who else?
Connie Booth.
Yeah, all right. Anybody else?
John Cleese, Connie Booth.
Who's the other main character?
Manuel.
Yeah, what is he?
Manuel is a Spanish waiter. I like that. That's an excellent link. Well done.
Sure,
and we're going to talk about Rafa Benitez.
We haven't got all night
in a
for this stuff.
No. Don't you worry about it.
Now, before we start talking about Rafa Benitez, we've got a phone call here from Eddie. He wants to talk about Jack Wilshere. I don't know whether he's going to be on his side or against him.
Okay.
Eddie, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
What would you like to say, Eddie?
Yeah, I think you guys are being a bit too harsh on the lad.
Right.
Harsh on the lad?
The guy's only 23 years old. He's still a kid.
Yeah, well,
he's still growing up.
Rubbish.
Well, I don't care. If he was your son, Eddie,
He's entitled to make mistakes.
Yeah.
He's entitled to make mistakes.
No, he's not.
His career is wasted. I think that's a bit. Come on.
How many times Eddie, quieten down. Quieten down.
He's a fantastic footballer.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic
Well, he could be a fantastic... Eddie, hang on. Eddie, you have to be quiet for a second.
Otherwise, I think Eddie's a machine.
You think Eddie's a machine. Eddie, if you be quiet for a second, right? Let Mike Parry let Mike Parry speak.
Eddie, the point is, mate, you can make one mistake and you might get away with that, but you make the mistake time and time and time again. You don't show any more. Listen, if he was your son, you'd be ashamed of him. You'd be ashamed of him. And Arsenal are ashamed of him.
You're going to get that language out of football match.
All right, hang on.
And the funny thing is, it wasn't even our football match.
Eddie sounds like an answering machine.
Celebration.
Eddie, hang on 1 second, right? Did Jack Wilshere not do exactly the same thing last year?
Sorry, what did he do last year? It was what did he do?
He did exactly the same thing. He got into trouble for chanting anti-Tottenham chants at the Arsenal victory parade when they won the FA Cup last year, right?
Yes.
And he said,
he's an Arsenal fan.
No, he's not. No, he's an Arsenal player. He's an Arsenal player.
I'm not an Arsenal fan. I'm a Liverpool fan. But many years ago at Highbury, I used to do a match day steward Highbury.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
well, Jack Wilshere needs to grow up and learn how to behave himself, Eddie. It's as simple as that.
Sorry, come again?
I said, last statement here, Eddie, I said Jack Wilshere needs to grow up and learn how to behave himself. He's an embarrassment to his club and probably to his parents, I would think.
Fair enough, but don't talk about the guy's career as if he's rubbish. Come on.
I didn't say he was rubbish. I said he doesn't know how to behave himself.
We didn't say he was rubbish, Eddie, but the bottom line
exactly.
is that if you cannot behave yourself like somebody who is supposed to be a responsible grown-up, then you can't be treated like a responsible grown-up, and hence you have to be punished, like the FA are about to punish him, for bringing the game into disrepute. And if you can't manage to go to a victory parade without abusing Tottenham fans, then, quite frankly, he shouldn't be taken on the victory parade. It's not about that. Absolute and utter nonsense.
And he should now be dropped from the England squad.
Yes, well, I think you're absolutely right about that. But let's talk about Rafa Benitez now, because you mentioned
he was in tears yesterday.
He was in tears. He's finally been appointed. It must be the longest anticipated appointment for any manager of any club, because, I mean, we've been known now for about, 2 weeks that he's going to be the manager?
I thought you were going to say 17 years, since he started as a coach at Real Madrid.
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, as a deputy coach.
You think he was always going to come back?
Well, always. He always wanted to go back, but there's many aspects of this. I mean, broke down in tears yesterday, fulfilling his lifetime ambition of taking over as the Real Madrid coach.
What's wrong with that?
Well,
what's wrong with being a bit emotional?
Be emotional like that when they step up to the big job if they can do it. Now he. Of course, I have had my differences with Mr. Benitez. He once referred to Everton as a small club.
Yeah.
And that's when I, unfortunately, had to apologise on air for talking about him as a Spanish peasant, which, of course, I didn't mean.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that, obviously.
No, you didn't mean it, but you were reacting emotionally, no doubt.
Well, I was reacting emotionally because, he...
This was when he was manager of Liverpool, was it?
Manager of Liverpool, described it as a small club, and I said he comes from a country where peasants still ride around on horses, clutching loaves of bread. And I wasn't being rude to the Spanish people.
No,
or to
not
Mr.
at all.
Benitez.
Of course not.
I had actually been in Spain quite a few months before that, and I had seen people riding down on horses carrying loaves under their arms.
What's wrong with that?
Wearing straw hats with holes in them. Yeah. That's all I said.
But what's wrong with that?
Well, I made too much of a generalisation saying that was the Spanish nation.
Because obviously you won't see much of that in Madrid.
No, you don't see much of that in Madrid.
Or indeed in Barcelona.
So I want to make that absolutely clear. Now, the other issue here about him is he's going to have to leave his home on the Wirral. It's in a place called Caldy Hill.
Is it?
And it's a beautiful home.
Why are you giving away where it is?
Well, why not?
Because people don't. I don't want to give away people's addresses on the air.
If I said your home was in Battle, in Hastings, or Battle in where is it? Sussex.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of houses in Battle.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want you to say that though.
Well, why not?
Well, why don't we give out the name of your road?
It's not a road. I'm not giving out a road. I'm giving out a town.
Yeah, but you live in a small town, don't you?
You can say, "Oh, I live in Epsom," right?
You don't live in Epsom.
I know where I live.
Don't.
I know where I live.
What's the postcode?
I'm not going to tell you.
Why not?
Because that will actually locate the actual building itself.
Yeah.
Every postcode is unique to bricks and mortar buildings, so I'm not going down that road.
What's the name of the nearest station?
I'm not going to tell you that either.
It's not Epsom, is it?
It's the reason it's the reason it's not actually Epsom is because it's a superior suburb.
Of course, it
has its own station. Okay,
it's got its own station.
Yeah,
Have you got your own train as well?
Of course I haven't got my own train, you idiot. Where are you coming from tonight? What's your problem?
I don't know why you
can't we just get on with the, talking about the issues of the day, which our listeners want to hear?
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say about Mr. Benitez is, did you know his house on the Wirral in Caldy is worth £8 million?
Is it really?
Yeah. It's the most expensive house on the Wirral.
Right.
You know what the Wirral is?
What is the Wirral?
The Wirral's a peninsula, which has the River Dee on one side.
That's where Beaky lives, isn't it?
And the River Mersey on the other. People like Beaky do live on the Wirral.
What do you mean people like Beaky?
Well, nice people like Beaky live on the Wirral.
You sound as though you've got something else to add to that.
No, it is very middle class. You're absolutely right. The wealthy elite of Merseyside live there.
So a lot of footballers got houses there?
Yeah, they have indeed. And they've got 2 tunnels from the Wirral to Liverpool. They've got Queensway and Kingsway. Okay?
Right.
And they zoom through these tunnels into Liverpool, do their work, and then zoom back onto the Wirral.
Are they toll-paying tunnels?
Yes, they are both toll-paying. Yes, they are indeed, yeah. And I used to go out with a girl from the Wirral. She came from a place called Neston.
Right.
And, in fact, it was Little Neston. Neston was the little town, and Little Neston was the even littler town, you see. That's why it was called Little Neston.
Okay, well, don't tell us her name either.
And if you went there on a summer's evening and then drove round to the top of the Wirral to Park Gate...
Okay.
Parkgate, beautiful. And
what's this got to do with Rafa Benitez moving to Real Madrid?
Well, because he lives there. He lives there. What I'm saying is he's leaving.
I mean, he's been managing in Naples, right?
Yes, I know, but he's never left his home in Caldy on the Wirral.
So why would he have to leave it now?
Well, I think he's taking on the responsibility of being the manager of Real Madrid very, very seriously indeed. Parkgate's an interesting place on the Wirral.
Is it?
Because the River Dee used to be the busiest river in the world.
Did it?
In the world.
Right.
How about that?
Well, even busier than the Nile?
Yes, that's
Even
right.
busier than the Thames?
That's right. During Roman times, the River Dee was the busiest river in the world.
Why?
Guess where it went to?
Well, it went to the same place it goes to now, presumably.
Yeah, which is?
Which is where? I don't know.
Chester.
Chester,
the biggest port in the world, OK?
Chester was the biggest port in the world.
It's the biggest port in the world, and the River Dee was the biggest river in the world.
Talking
okay?
about?
I'm telling you. Now, do you know what
Absolute
happened?
rubbish.
Do you know what happened?
What an absolute load of old cobblers you're talking.
No, I'm not. Do you
How
know?
could Chester be the biggest city in the world, or even the biggest port in the world?
I'm talking about Roman times. That's
The Romans came from
that's
Italy,
why they called
right?
it Diva.
Yeah. Well, hang on.
Yeah.
The Romans came from Italy.
Diva
right?
means like of water.
Yeah, I know. It also can refer to other things as well.
Yeah.
But the Romans came from Italy, right? So presumably they were branching out to all sorts of parts of their
That's right.
empire. So
That's
there must
right.
have been busier ports in Italy than there were in any of their sort of far-flung parts of the empire.
No, Chester became the busiest, believe me.
Don't believe
Now,
you.
do you know what happened? Do you know why Chester is no longer a port?
No.
Some guy arrived from China on a Chinese boat. This is like hundreds of years ago. And he dropped a bit of seaweed into the water. And ever since...
Chester's now inland.
Yeah, Chester's inland now, because what happened was the seaweed multiplied like 10 billion times and clogged up the river.
Is that right?
So boats couldn't get up there anymore.
Right.
And it killed off the river.
So how is Chester now no longer on the sea?
Well, it is on the sea, but it's at the end of the sea, if you see what I mean. It's the end of the River Dee.
Chester's not generally called a coastal town, is
No,
it?
it's not. It's at the end of the River Dee. And we had to build a weir across a place called the Hambridge in Chester.
Can we talk about Rafa Benitez,
Stop the
please?
water flooding Chester, which is
I'm
one of the
raving
greatest
on about
cities in the
the
world.
sort of
It's
state
very
of the
old.
river in
Now
Chester.
then, what I wanted to say about Rafa is he the fit man for Real Madrid? The point is this.
What is the point?
This. He was very fortunate to win the Champions League with Liverpool, but he won it. It's on his record. He's therefore a manager of a winning Champions League team. But then again,
you can say that about almost anyone that won a Champions League.
What's his name? Won it with Chelsea.
Roberto Di Matteo.
Roberto Di Matteo.
Yeah,
That's
you
exactly
might say
the man
that.
I'm talking about. And it can sometimes be a fluke. Was it a fluke in Rafa's case? Well, it was
I
his
don't
first
think it was a
season.
fluke, no.
They were 3-0 down at half-time. And Steven Gerrard famously rescued the game, which we all know about
He
because
did.
he recently talked
was
about
amazing.
it with
Absolutely
Gerrard's
amazing.
retirement. So what I'm saying is that was a high point of his career. Has there been a high point since? No, there has not been a high point since.
Well, he won the Europa League with Chelsea, didn't he?
Well, yes, but he hasn't won a league. He hasn't won a national league since then, has he? In fact, he won national leagues last time when he was manager of Valencia, didn't he, in Spain?
He's won it with Valencia, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, twice, I think, in 2 successive
Yeah.
seasons. So what I'm saying is this, does he actually have the full qualifications to be the next manager of Real Madrid? Will he last more than one season? I say no.
Well, it
I
depends
say
what he
he'll
does.
last one season.
Well, it depends. I mean, lots of managers have managed Real Madrid and only managed them for one season,
Yeah,
haven't they?
yeah,
Manuel
well, I think he'll be
Pellegrini,
one of
Manuel
them.
Pellegrini was one of them.
Yes,
wasn't
I think he'll be one of them.
Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, it's one of those jobs that you don't turn down. I mean, it's like somebody coming to you and saying, would you like to be, David Cameron's spin doctor, right?
Yes.
You would probably have said yes.
No, I'd turn that down.
Why would you?
I turn it down on the basis that I have explored the possibilities of public relations as a career. And
you're not very good at it?
No, I was very good at it.
No, you weren't very
I was
good
very
at it
good
at
at it, but it's simply not for me. I could not be a poacher a gamekeeper even. No, what am I talking about here? Yeah, that's right. I could not be a poacher
What are
turned
you talking
gamekeeper.
about?
I could not be a poacher turned gamekeeper. I am a poacher by profession, by nature, by instinct, and gamekeeping does not suit me. So the answer to that one is no.
Well.
But what I'm saying is, I think it's an indictment of either Real Madrid or the standard of managers in the world altogether that nobody who is of a more successful breed, is it for want of a better word, or who?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take you.
Doesn't have better antecedents.
I'm going to take you outside
to take this job
during the break, right? I'm going to fan you down.
Yes.
I'm going to put some cold flannels on you.
Why?
And I'm going to give you an electric shock.
Why?
Because there's something wrong with you.
What
I
are you
don't
on
think you're
about?
thinking straight.
Don't be
You're so
ridiculous.
raving on about the Romans and Chester.
Don't be
Now you're
ridiculous.
talking about poachers and gamekeepers,
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Now, the bottom line is Rafa Benitez will be a good manager for Real Madrid. Everyone who manages Real Madrid is a good manager for him. Almost all of them win something. And so, therefore, whether he lasts there a year or several years, I'm going to wish him all the best and wish him good luck.
Why?
Because I think being a success is a good thing, and for him to be manager of Real Madrid is a great thing.
You've got no emotional attachment to either Rafa Benitez or Real Madrid. What nonsense are you talking here?
I had admiration for Rafa Benitez because I think because he's been to an awful lot of different clubs and he's done very well at all of them.
He's done okay at some of them.
He's done pretty well at all of them. It was only really at Napoli where he failed by one last game to get them into the Champions League.
Do you think the Chelsea fans even wanted to win the Europa League? I don't.
I think they did. Once they got it, they did.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
I thought they were very, very badly behaved towards Rafa Benitez.
I'm not sure about that. He had two outstanding years at Liverpool, didn't he? Champions League one season, FA Cup the next. But, of course, like every other manager who's managed the club since the Premier League era, he couldn't crack the big one and win the Premier League.
No, he couldn't. And, of course, they haven't won it since, have they? This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. We've got loads more coming up. I'll tell you how far Chester is away from the sea now, thanks to that guy from China with the seaweed.
Yeah.
talkSPORT on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
talkSPORT.
talkSPORT Extra Time. We are the two mics. He's Mike Parry. I, of course, am Mike Graham. We've got loads of tweets. We're going to talk to Alexei Yaroshevsky in a moment. We're just having a few problems with that. But first of all, let me read you a couple of these tweets out that I've got here. One from Sam, who sent a picture of a canary singing. And he says, singing like a canary. Here's a picture, Porky. As for FIFA, the term is different. Snouts in the trough comes to mind. We've also got Dash, who says, your quote, Mr. Parry, about calling that guy an answering machine was absolutely hilarious. Gunnar says this. Gunnar 29. Maybe you should get Jack Wilshere's parents on air to see what they have to say about your personal attack on raising him. As Zobon says, how long will this song go on with Jack Wilshere? He's a kid. He's not a kid. He's older than Sterling. He should grow up. And Michael says, what about Rooney, who's caught on live games every week, effing and blinding at the ref several times a match? Well, I don't think that's particularly
I don't either. I mean, that's on
a
football. I definitely wouldn't encourage it, but it's on a football pitch, and it comes from the passion of the man.
Yeah.
Whereas Jack Wilshere's foul-mouthed rant against people who weren't even there, Spurs fans who are totally innocent of winding him up or anything else, just comes from the nastiness of the boy.
Exactly right. Now, a couple have made some reference to your rather interesting diatribe about the sea. Oliver says, Mike Parry practising his Haikido meditation in Chester.
Yes.
How far is the sea? Sea very far. Sea go to horizon. You might remember that one.
Yeah,
and Bill says, are we finished with the estuary hour now, Mike? Can I ask Paulie to do a quiz on the Suez Canal tonight? Anyway,
no.
Now we've got Porky
Coronation
Vision.
Street.
We've got Porky Vision coming up tonight. Coronation Street quiz coming up tomorrow. We've got, however, Alexei Yaroshevsky back. We're going to talk to him about Russia's reaction to all of this stuff going on about FIFA, because, of course, Vladimir Putin was a great supporter of Sepp Blatter's.
Yes,
Russia have got the World Cup in 2018.
Yes,
Alexei, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hi. We've seen an awful lot of coverage, obviously, here in London and in the United States about what's been going on since last week when these FIFA officials were arrested, and then Sepp Blatter won the fifth term as president, and then yesterday when he resigned. What's been the reaction in Russia? What's being said there?
Well, I would say the coverage of everything happening within the FIFA scandal has been tremendously huge in Russia as well, obviously, for the obvious reason, because Russia is hosting the 2018 World Cup, and of course this is a very touchy and important issue for the country. If we talk about the reactions, I mean, they've been obviously mixed. There were people who had genuine concerns that Russia could be stripped of the World Cup. There were people, and there have been people who have been saying that there's nothing to worry about and that the World Cup will still take place. There have been people defending Sepp Blatter. There have been people accusing him of things. So reactions have been pretty much mixed, and I wouldn't say that there was any kind of dominance in terms of reactions into any favour.
OK, now, Alexei, let me ask you what Mr Putin's reaction would be if all of a sudden some kind of vote was put forward by the newly constructed FIFA board to say we're going to have a look again at awarding the World Cup to Russia. I believe Mr Putin would react very badly. I believe that he already believes there's an element of an American plot to try and destabilise and undermine Russia. And I think it would be a very dangerous political situation for the world.
It is indeed. I mean, I've been saying all along that I do not see any chance of Russia or even Qatar, for that matter, being stripped of their World Cup, even if there are allegations of the vote being rigged or bribed or anything of the sort. I think they will still hold those World Cups because the preparations are well much underway. A lot of money already been spent by both countries, and I just don't see that happening. But hypothetically, if this happened, of course the reaction would have been from the president would have been very critical. Talking about this sort of conspiracy, if you may call it so, about the American plot and all this. I mean, we have to go back to a few months ago when, if I remember correctly, I think 13 or 14 U.S. senators actually wrote a letter to FIFA when the scandal has not even erupted, and it was, FIFA as we knew it before Sepp Blatter's resignation, asking the governing body of the football to strip Russia of the World Cup because of the political situation. And that's where it's all coming from. I mean, what would you expect if you have U.S. senators sending a letter like this, openly asking for a confrontation with Russia in terms of hosting the World Cup? I mean, politics is one thing, sport is a different thing.
Sure.
As it has always been, and
that's not necessarily everybody's view, Alexei, you see, because some people would say that, when the Winter Olympics were held in Russia, there was some talk of possibly boycotting it because, some of the attitudes to people and certain minorities in Russia is not the same as they are in the West, and therefore some people in the West think that makes it a bad place to host the Games, the Olympic Games, or indeed the World Cup. So it's a legitimate concern, but you wouldn't want to link that with a genuine criminal investigation, surely, from any part of the world, would you?
No, absolutely not. Criminal investigation is one thing. Concerns about certain people being treated a certain way in Russia is a different thing. But we all do remember, though, how the Olympics went, and there was a lot of bad press before that, and there was a lot of good press after that. Everybody were genuinely happy and amazed at the way it was held. I mean, if we go back to even the Euro 2012 in Poland and Ukraine, you do remember how much press was criticizing both countries for racism and hooliganism and everything like that. But the championship, I was there, I was covering it all the way. The championship was excellent. And again, if, and I've been saying this all along as well, if there is some kind of investigation and whether it's confirmed or denied that there was a bribery taking place in the 2018 World Cup, then of course Russia should be stripped of the World Cup. If there is a violation of international law and criminal law, of course, this should be the case. But for now, nothing has been proven, and again, we have to wait and see what the investigation brings.
Alexei, there's another Alexei involved in this, and that is Alexei Sorokin. He's the man in charge of making the World Cup happen in Russia. He's got problems because the Russian economy has taken a nosedive because of the Ukraine situation, because of the dramatic slump in world fortunes over the last 3 or 4 years. And quite apart from the row now engulfing FIFA, Russia are going to have to work very hard to deliver this anyway, aren't they?
Well, if we talk about the economic situation, yeah, it is pretty difficult right now with the exchange rate being jumping pretty much all the time. But as far as I know, and I do remember interviewing several Russian Football Union officials before all those events with Ukraine, before those sanctions and all this turmoil, the money for the World Cup had already been allocated, I think, a year after Russia won the right to host the 2018 World Cup. So I don't think this is going to change in any way. I think the money is already there, and they've been allocated for the construction of stadiums and stuff like this. And I don't think this is a matter of concern right now for Russia. The matter of concern right now is whether there will be any kind of revote or whether there will be any kind of attempts within FIFA to change the bid.
Yeah. Well, I hope it stays there because I think Russia's a magnificent country. I love the architecture of Moscow and Leningrad and places like that, and St. Petersburg. So I do hope it happens there. And
it's not called Leningrad anymore, don't you?
No, I know that. Yeah. I was given it its historic name.
All right.
Because, I believe it would be a fantastic competition and great to have it there. And I want to thank Alexei for coming on and explaining.
Well, I haven't finished talking to him yet. I'm going to ask him one more question.
Right,
Alexei, the thing about Vladimir Putin was that he was quite sort of vociferous in his support of Sepp Blatter just before the election. But we haven't really seen too much of him here anyway. I don't know whether that's just because we haven't seen what he's been saying. But what has he been saying since Sepp Blatter stepped down?
In fact, there hasn't been any reaction on that since Sepp Blatter resigned. Yes, he has indeed been supporting him, and as far as I know, they are, not if friends, but they're very close. And, of course, Vladimir Putin has always been saying that Sepp Blatter did a tremendous step for Russia in terms of giving it the World Cup and making it happen. I'm not sure whether that was Sepp Blatter's actions, but all in all, they've been very in good relations, and you would expect Vladimir Putin to support Sepp Blatter in the situation he has been in. And again, until proven guilty, he's still innocent. And we'll have to wait and see what the investigation delivers and what will be the possible reaction of the Russian leadership on that.
Absolutely. Alexei, sounds like there's some trouble there. Thank you very much indeed. Alexei Yaroshevsky there, a bit of a police siren there in the background.
Yes.
Not the Porky alert siren.
Is that from Moscow he's ringing us?
He is in from Moscow, yes, exactly right.
City.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know you were going to suddenly start becoming all kind of apologetic now for the Russians
I'm
as
not
well.
apologetic for
there are
them.
lots of people who don't think Russia should have got the bid in the first place for political reasons, never mind whether there was any jiggery-pokery.
Do you know what? I was told by somebody who went out there for the British delegation that when they saw the Russian video presentation, it was like something you and I might put together downstairs as a video for Two Mike's TV.
What do you mean? Well, it was that good?
No, it was that poor.
What?
I mean,
the Russian imagery was amazing.
No, it was terrible.
Yeah, I saw it. I watched it.
No, I watched it, and more to the point.
I thought it was amazing.
The British delegation. No, they said the actual.
Well, they
video,
got that wrong, didn't they? Because they won it and England didn't.
Yes, but you see, this is part of the reason why they thought there might have been something dodgy going on. The presentation was so bad.
No, I don't agree. I saw the Russian video. I thought it was brilliant.
No, it wasn't. No, it was amateurish.
Well, you haven't seen it. You've just said you've talked to somebody who saw it.
Of course, I saw it. I saw it like everybody else.
Well, can you describe it then?
I can describe it as it was a spectacular, and it was supposed to show the range of the Russian nation.
It was Andrei Arshavin, wasn't it?
Yes,
running through
Arshavin.
Various different situations in Russia, finishing up with this boy, I think, who was playing football with him in the stadium, scoring a goal. It was brilliant.
From the Caucasus to Siberia to Vladivostok to St. Petersburg to Moscow, to St. Basil's Cathedral.
Yeah.
The Kremlin, it was all there.
Yeah.
It was all there.
Well, what was wrong with it then, in your view?
Well, it was amateurish and put together. And by the way, the stuff we do for Two Mike's TV is not amateurish, you're saying.
It's certainly not. That's what I thought you meant when you said originally that's how good it is.
No, but we're so good at doing it, we can do it in a few minutes. And I was saying it looked like it was put together in a few minutes, whereas it should have been put together over a period of weeks. What are you laughing at?
I'm going to call for the nurse in a minute.
Why?
Because I think you need some medication.
Are you mad?
Absolute
what's wrong with me?
You're talking raving. You're talking absolute bonkers.
Well, I'm asking myself,
I'll tell you
what's wrong with me?
When you come back, right, I'm going to be asking. I'll tell you why you've gone bonkers. Because you spent the afternoon talking on another radio station about badgers for some reason. Right now, I've got no problem with Jeremy Vine.
It's badgers and milk.
Jeremy Vine is a fine man, but for some reason, this is a guy who thinks you're an expert. Right? He's had you on now as a fat expert, and he's now had you on as a badger expert.
Sorry, can we get this right? You mean obesity expert?
Has he lost the plot? This
obesity
guy.
Expert. I have become.
Did you see any men in white coats hanging around?
I am very worried about the situation regarding farmers losing their livelihood.
But what do you know about it, though?
I know a lot about it because
why did they introduce you as an expert?
Well, I've got a mate who once went to...
the old budgets must be under severe pressure at the BBC.
No, I've got a mate who once went to Cirencester Agricultural College. What are you laughing at?
Was he a scientist? Did he have a white coat?
Well, funny enough, he was, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we'll talk about that coming up in the next hour. Talking to Sophie Nicolau in a little while, who, funnily enough, is a big Arsenal fan, so we won't even ask her about the Jack Wilshere scenario. But she's been living in Los Angeles for a very long time, and we'll be talking about your time in New York City and my time there as well, and whether you got homesick, because David De Gea and Hugo Lloris talking about how they want to go home seems kind of ridiculous. But first, I want to get into this Badgers conversation with you, because how on earth is it that some other radio station considers you to be an expert in Badgers? Can you explain that?
Yes, because you see, when I come here and I talk to you, Mike, that's only one branch of the expertise that I am able to summon up on a wide range of subjects.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to say. I mean, like, if you say to me, for example, I'm an expert on badgers, I go, right, we'll give you a quiz, and you come up with 3 out of 10, and then we declare that you're not really an expert on badgers after all.
But that's only the stupid
but how
questions.
Have you managed to pull the wool over these people's eyes?
No, I don't pull the wool over their eyes. The point is that, they ring me up and they say, this subject seems to be the sort of thing, it's up your street. No problem at all. I knew, for instance, that 200 farmers a month are losing their livelihood because the price of milk now is being driven down so low. But by
they're not by badgers, though.
Well, a lot of it is to do with that. A lot of it's to do with foreign imported milk, right, which is cheaper than English milk, and the fact that supermarkets who are going through dreadful times to try and compete with
my heart bleeds for them.
Aldi and Lidl are having to force down the price.
So now you're feeling sorry for the supermarkets?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Well, hang on. Aldi and Lidl are also supermarkets, right? They can do things cheaper, so why can't the other ones just match them?
Well, they're going to have to catch up, aren't they? You're absolutely right. But this means that the poor old dairy farmer now is under threat. Now, what's more, this ridiculous protest, right, Cafe Nero, right?
Yeah, what is this protest about?
Well, what they said is they're not going to use milk now from certain areas of the country where the badger cull is in force.
Oh, okay.
The reason there's a badger cull in force, right, is because the badgers carry TB.
Yeah.
And the TB gets transmitted to cows, and the cows die of TB. It's a very painful death. You have to put them down.
Tuberculosis. It's not as bad as going into the old abertoire, though, is it?
Well,
it's quite a painful death as well.
No, it's not. It's not painful at all for a cow to be put to death in an abattoir. It's just not painful.
How's it not painful?
Because they stun them in the brain, and then they put them out, and then they do them in.
So they don't actually kill them straight off then, do they?
No, exactly.
So they stun them in the brain first.
They stun them in the brain first.
And that doesn't hurt?
No, it doesn't hurt, and they don't know they're being killed.
Okay.
Seriously.
Right.
But they
do know when they've got bovine tuberculosis.
Yeah, but the badgers, right, when they get TB, they are cast out of their set because the other badgers know they're infected and they're diseased and they become like lepers. They're the badger equivalent of lepers.
So they're not the badgers anymore, they're actually leopards.
Well, they become like badger leopards, if you see what I mean, and they're cast out of their sets and all that. So they go running off around the countryside, urinating all over the place.
Right, as you do.
Yeah. Well, of course you do. Why can't you take this seriously?
Because you don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do.
The science is not actually decided yet.
And the urine carries the bovine disease, and that spreads to the grass, and then the grass is eaten by the cows. The cows get it, so I know all about it. Believe me. Right. I also know that only 200 people of this Stop the Cull movement posted on Facebook a demand. Stop the cull, C-U-L-L.
Oh, the cull, right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are against the cull because, one, they say it doesn't work, two, they say it's ineffective, and three, it doesn't actually solve anything.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is Cafe Nero is supposed to be a responsible company, and they reacted to the demands to not take milk from the areas where the badger cull is in force, right? On a representation on Facebook from 200 people. 200 people. 200 people.
Well, that's what we call the power of social media.
Who are, whose background is almost certainly that they're vegetarians, they don't like farmers anyway. That. No, I don't know that, but I'm suggesting. And the other insinuation is, of course, we'll be demonstrating outside your premises on austerity day.
Yes.
Did you know there's an anti-austerity day?
I didn't know there was one of those.
Yeah, there's a huge anti-austerity.
So we'll get all these anti-globalisation muppets knocking around London, will we?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And what do they end up doing? They usually end up smashing the windows of shops they don't like.
That's right.
So I suppose Cafe Nero are thinking we could be susceptible to criminal damage.
Well, in which case they're being quite sensible, aren't they?
No, in which case they should rung the police and said, look, we think we've had a veiled threat here for people to damage our premises.
Yeah, but you know what the police will say?
You're cynical.
No, the police will say, well, I'm sorry, sir, we can't do anything unless there's a crime committed.
Yeah, so you're cynical and dismissive attitude towards me has backfired on you. I've just proved to millions of our listeners that I'm an expert on bovine...
what is it again? Bovine what?
TB. Okay, bovine tuberculosis, right? I'm an expert on that.
Okay.
I'm an expert on the...
Are you an expert on badgers as well?
I'm an expert on badgers,
Would you like a quiz on it?
Yeah. Why? There's not enough to make up a quiz on badgers.
I can make a quiz on anything.
It's quite simple.
I can make you a quiz on anything.
I'm also an expert on the delivery of milk in this country, on the dairy farming industry, on the political demonstration background to it all. So it's blown up in your face again. You've tried to take the mickey, and you've been found to be the biggest fool in this studio
I don't think so.
that we've had for a very long time.
I would be the biggest fool in this studio if it weren't for you sitting here next to me. However, here's the situation, right? If Cafe Nero had any sense, they would just say that they weren't going to accept milk from anybody outside of particular regions. They'd just take it anyway.
No, what they should have done is that this lot actually poses to them, do you take milk from any area which is in the bovine...
Why don't you find out where these areas are and just buy milk from there?
No, what they should have done is Cafe Nero said, we're not telling you where we buy our milk from. No. It's not none of your business. Right. It is actually from Somerset.
Is it?
Yeah, and they should have just said, it's none of your business where we get our milk from. But the more sinister part about this protest is that Sainsbury's are to be approached now to ask where they buy their milk from.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is...
It's a new form of terrorism, isn't it?
Of course it is. Why do minorities always, in this country, seem to get sympathy and empathy and succeed?
Well, because it's not so much that they're minorities, it's they make an awful lot of noise. These kind of groups.
What it is, Mike, is what's been bred into us over the last 20 years is that all minorities are oppressed people.
But these people are not oppressed. They're oppressed on behalf of somebody else.
No, but what I'm saying is the total attitude now is, well, because they're a minority, they must be oppressed. Because the majorities always oppress minorities. That's the thinking.
Yeah.
It's so stupid and fatuous, but, these people make a living out of protesting. They protest about badger culling this week. Next week, they'll
move on to something else.
Well, they want to ban fishing or something like that. You know what I mean? This is the nature of it.
By the way, I've got stories to talk to you about that later, about those fish that came up onto the land. Have you seen that story?
I've seen it. It's in Australia, walking fish.
Walking fish?
Yeah, it's serious. I was going to bring it up with you.
Yeah.
There is... Australia are going to be invaded by walking fish, which... No, it's true.
I know.
They've come all the way from Southeast Asia.
I know.
And by the way...
Have they walked all the way?
No, of course not, you idiot. They've swum, but when they get to land, these fish can actually walk across land, and it comes hot on the heels. I don't know why you're laughing. It's a serious subject. It comes hot on the heels of us demonstrating to our millions of listeners.
Maybe they'll be demonstrating outside Cafe Nero just to kind of round the whole story up.
Really? It comes after we informed our millions of listeners quite recently that octopusi can also walk.
Well, they've got legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you'd expect them to walk, wouldn't you?
And even more clever, octopusi can open the locks on doors and get out.
Yeah, they can.
They can.
If they're ever in a locked room.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Now,
well, in a locked cage, when these fishermen scoop them out the sea and put them in locked cages, the octopuses can open the lock.
Now, listen, we're going to talk about David De Gea in a second.
Yeah.
But let me read you this.
We should be talking about David Schindler as well, because he's making a serious bid to become...
you managed to get hold of him
FIFA
yet? You're
president.
supposed to be getting him on the show,
He was busy today. He was busy.
Here's one from Old Man Goon. It says, ask Porky, how do the barges get up the Dee to pick up the Airbus A380 wings from Broughton?
Well, Broughton is quite a long way away.
Eh?
It's near Offers Dyke.
Is it?
It's on the Welsh border.
Yeah, but it's on the canal, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on a canal.
On a river.
Yeah, it's not on the river. It's not on the River Dee.
Isn't it?
No.
Are you sure?
Definitely.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk to Sophie Nicolau coming up shortly because we want to talk about homesick footballers and how on earth, if you're a multi-millionaire, you can feel homesick for Madrid or Paris or anywhere else for that matter. This is talkSPORT. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. There will, of course, be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. How long did you live in America, sort of, altogether, then? Because you had 2 stints there, didn't you?
About 4 years.
About 4... Was that all? Was it not more than that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's about 4 years.
And did you ever get homesick for old Blighty?
Occasionally for Coronation Street, English pubs and beer, fish and chips, although you got quite good fish and chips in New York.
Yeah.
Not really anywhere else. And sometimes for... English weather.
Yeah.
Because the problem where we lived on the eastern seaboard, whether it was Washington or New York, was that it was always very, very cold in the winter and very, very hot in the summer.
It was.
And there wasn't much in between.
Yeah, there was very, very few sort of, what you would call sort of English days where it's not really particularly hot, not particularly cold.
Absolutely.
It didn't rain that much either. What about Everton, though? What about watching football? Because in those days when you were living there wasn't the same kind of coverage of football that there is now.
They did not even cover the 1984 Cup final when Everton beat Watford 2-0. I had to go to Canada to watch it.
Did you?
Yeah, flew off to Canada.
I remember going to a place, there was some bar down in... the village somewhere that we all went to watch a cup final one morning. It was ending in those days when it used to kick off at 3 o'clock. So it was 10 o'clock in the morning kick-off. Yeah. And it was in this big kind of warehouse place, and we all paid something like $10 to go in and watched it on a big screen.
Right.
And it was quite exciting, actually, because I hadn't seen an FA Cup final for a couple of years.
Sure.
And suddenly seeing it in that kind of situation was great.
When I watched it in Canada in 1984, everybody gathered in Eamon Durand's on the Sunday.
Right.
Because I was bringing the video back.
Right.
I had the hotel in Canada provide a video machine.
Right.
Sounds very old-fashioned now. To video it, and I was bringing it back.
Yeah.
And there must have been 200 people named Durand's. They'd never seen a cup final for years because it wasn't shown in America. And I got in there, and they put the video in, and after, 6 or 7 minutes of nothing but, static and fuzz and all that, Mick Brennan, our photographer of Fenn, realised that, he said, did that go through the scanner at the airport? I said, yeah, it was in my hand luggage. The scanner had wiped the whole the whole thing.
Well, you were popular.
Exactly.
It was a run out of the bar.
Complete letdown, yeah.
Now, we're going to talk to Sophie Nicolau now, a good friend of the show. Yeah. She is the celebrity Arsenal fan, of course. Very happy that Arsenal won back-to-back FA Cups. She's been living in California for a very long time, originally from London. Sophie, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
Yeah.
I was fascinated by this. It jumped from badgers to milk to Sainsbury's.
Yes, absolutely.
I was fascinated.
Well,
I was wondering how the heck am I going to follow this up?
Don't worry, Sylvie. You always can. It's a serious subject, but we have to deal with these things. Now then, Mike. You're going to talk to me about Sophia being displaced and homeless.
Well, not really, no. I wanted to talk about... she's not displaced and homeless. How long have you been living in California, Sophie?
I've been living here since 2001.
Okay, so a long time. I was in America for nearly 10 years. Porky next to me here was there for about 4.
4 or 5.
You were back here. You were back here fairly recently when we saw you. I mean, do you miss anything? Do you get homesick about living over there?
Okay, so it's really funny because you go through these moments where you really do miss home, and I think those moments are based around events. So if something's going on with the family, if there's something significant going on, like I wish I could have been at the FA Cup final, like moments like that. There was a phase where I got really super homesick around the Olympics and the Jubilee and the Royal Wedding. England seemed to be in this glorious, shining moment around that time, and it felt like, wow, I can't believe I'm missing out on this patriotism and this London that I've never quite seen before. So I was able to benefit, though, from some of those things much, much later on. And then when I came back to London, there were 2 things that really struck me. One, of course, was the weather, because I live in a fantastic place where the weather's amazing. And then the commuting to work. You're either on the 405 here stuck in traffic, or I was staying with my cousin, and I remember him dropping me off at Oakwood Station, and the snow is really kicking in. There's ice everywhere, and I'm wearing heels, and I'm trying to get to a meeting. And when I was in those moments, I was like, wow, I so love where I live, and I'm stoked about it. And I think it's a really super healthy lifestyle. So I don't miss England in terms of living there.
I got homesick, Sophie, when I came over to your coast, to the West Coast. The East Coast, I could handle it easily. New York's a big city. Washington's a capital, with fantastic architecture and all that kind of stuff. But I simply can't work out Los Angeles because, Los Angeles is not a city, just a collection of little communities and towns like Santa Monica and Venice Beach and all that kind of stuff. And to me, it's just like a really, really foreign place. Driving up and down Pacific Coast Highway to me and going to Pacific Palisades and all that. Excuse me, it's just like a very weird community. And because it's a weird community, I regard most people who live there, most native people, not yourself, as a bunch of screwballs who live
like... You should have fit in rather well then.
No, not at all.
So how long ago was that? How long ago?
The late 80s and through the 90s to the late 90s.
Okay, so the incredible thing is you're actually right about one thing, and that is that Los Angeles really doesn't feel like a city. It's like hubs. Everywhere's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not like Chicago. It's not like New York. It's not like Seattle, San Francisco. However, over the last 5 or 6 years, that has really changed. The downtown area where the Lakers play, right near Dodger Stadium, you've got, ESPN. You've got a lot of companies that have invested in a lot of live entertainment down there. And it's really an amazing hub now. The area has been cleaned up. It's really super trendy to live there. So the city is feeling much, much more like a city, as are the surrounding areas as well. And I think that the East Coast, maybe people credit it, maybe for a bit more culture. Would you say that's an accurate statement that, because of the theatre and Broadway, New York is one step closer to Europe? I think people feel that about the East Coast.
Yeah, but I mean, you're from Chester, for example,
yes,
which you were busy telling me earlier on was formerly a coastal town.
That's right, yeah.
So you'd be quite at home living by the sea, wouldn't you?
Well, you see, that's a ridiculous statement because Chester's no longer a coastal town.
Well, you said it was, if it wasn't a Chinese guy with the seaweed.
Yeah, but Chester's a very historical town. It was founded by the Romans. Yeah. It was a great medieval city. So we're used to all the sort of culture in this city. Now, you do, Sophie's quite right, get a bit of that in New York. You certainly get that in Washington. I had an overwhelming sense of destiny and history and heritage in Washington. Go to the Smithsonian, just see the architecture and all that kind of stuff. But you don't get any of that in California. It's like California was invented in about 1922. And
look, California's got so much to offer in so many different ways. Plus, we're the hub of new technology. California's almost like it's Facebook and Google, brothers and sisters. We're a young state. There's a lot of excitement here. You've got the weather, you've got the mountains, the deserts, you've got the ocean, you've got the surf community, you've got the entertainment community, you've got Silicon Valley. It is a fusion of different entities and things that make it like a really amazing place to live, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of friends. I got a lot of friends who moved out there and loved it as well. I never really liked it as much as I liked the East Coast as well. No. But listen to this from Becky, who's tweeted in at the two mics. She says, "I left the UK in 2002. Best move ever. Travelled the world and never been homesick. I find the UK depressing when I return home." And I used to find out when I lived in America as well, because America was this very kind of young, thrusting country. Nobody was kind of giving you a hard time for doing, something that you wanted to do or something that you were ambitious to do. And you would come back here and people would kind of sneer at you because you had a bit of money. And, it's probably changed quite a bit now when you come back, Sophie. But do you still find that?
I got lean here. I got fit here. I got lively here. I got energetic here. I find that when I come home, everyone moves a lot slowly. I think lifestyles have improved and people do watch what they eat a lot more as well. I think in the US people are becoming more conscious of that too. But I think this is the place where you really believe that you can achieve anything. I love that about America. I love that spirit. I love the patriotism. The Women's World Cup starts on Saturday. Everyone's going to kind of come together. There's this sense of, I think that comes from the presidential thing. You grow up, you're born, you can become president. You really are. Yeah. I think we've had this conversation before, Mike, isn't it? Here, it's like, yes, you can. Yeah. Whereas our mentality growing up has been, you can't do that. Yeah. And I think that translates in sports as well. And I think we see that with England and penalties in tournaments. So America really does infuse this belief. And some people might call that arrogance. I call it positivity, and I think that England could benefit from that a little bit, because sometimes we like to kind of take that back seat and just accept things just because, and I think that's the way we're raised.
Which takes us on to one last final point. We've got to ask you about Jack Wilshere, because there's a lot of hoo-ha here about Jack Wilshere and the way that he's been behaving. And for the second year in a row, he starts this horrible chant against Spurs from the top of the Arsenal victory parade. And now he's been charged by the FA with, conduct to bringing football into disrepute and all of that. And we're both saying, isn't it time this guy sort of stopped behaving like the idiot that Arsenal have got and just concentrate on football, isn't it?
Okay, there's two sides to this. One, you want to chuckle because obviously Arsenal versus Tottenham, but the player, the representative should not be doing that, right? Jack Wilshere I thought it was classless, and I think his behaviour smacked a little bit of desperate, because if you think about this guy, if he hadn't have done that, who would have been talking about him over this weekend in the FA Cup final? The dialogue was about Theo, Ozil, Santi, Sanchez, Coquelin. Those are the players that deserve the headlines. And he was irrelevant, and he tried to make himself relevant. And he, up on the bus with his Ray-Bans. He's in a club until 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Attitude off the field sucks. Yeah. It really sucks. And I think he was trying to make himself relevant.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's absolutely the wrong way to do it. Sophie, a pleasure to talk to you, as ever. Thanks very much indeed. Sophie Nicolau talking about being homesick.
Sure.
Roy says this. He moved to the US almost 25 years ago, and he says, even the worst days here, you can still find opportunities, and I've got no desire to live back in the UK ever. So a lot of people who move and never come back to this country actually don't feel homesick at all.
Good for them, it's fine. I don't like beaches and I don't like sun, so I wouldn't do too well in California. By the way, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Well, we haven't got time to pick any bones.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
You said to me last week, rabbit holes are so small that, your dog could never disappear down one and get lost. Because I said
my dog couldn't.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. Very, very sadly, I have to report that there's been a recent case of a man who got his head stuck in a rabbit hole and died.
What was he doing? Why was he sticking his head down a rabbit hole?
He was hunting rabbits, and for some unknown reason, he stuck his head into a rabbit hole. So there was any rabbits in there, and he never got his head out. He was found. The actual report said that they saw a male stuck with his head in the rabbit hole, his body and legs protruding, and his legs were being waved around, but he died of asphyxiation.
Dear me.
And he was left there for a few hours. So you say a dog can't get into a rabbit hole, but a man can get his head into a rabbit hole.
Terrible story.
Well, it's a shocking story, and I don't want you making fun of it and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to illustrate to you
thank you very much.
A lot of what you say on this show is an inverted pyramid of piffle.
Is it really? When are you going to use your own phrase instead of stealing one from Boris Johnson? This is talkSPORT.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
For a time, we are the two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. Loads and loads of FIFA stories all over the papers again this morning.
Yeah.
This was your kind of era of music. You'll recognise that.
Well,
one, of course,
not necessarily my era. That's a great song. That was actually filmed at the Cannes Film Festival.
Was it?
Elton John. Yeah, and in the video he wore a boater and and he carried a cane, and he had
a white blazer on, or a stripy blazer.
No, it was tie and tails.
Was it?
Yeah, white tie and tails.
Oh, okay.
And it was a great record, and he wrote it because he'd gone through a particularly difficult period in his life. He'd sort of got involved in drugs and all that kind of stuff. And then he came through it, and he actually wrote that saying, "I'm still standing," because he'd had a very hard time.
Yeah, he probably should have been lying down
and come
at
back.
the very least.
Yeah. But look, I tell you, what that's all about. It's a very serious subject. This is something I've been going on about for a while. But of course, you don't get it. Because
Why does every single story that you tell have to have some kind of rejoinder about me in it?
Well, because you don't get it, you see. You don't understand, how to keep your body in good shape.
You're an example of somebody who keeps their body in good shape.
Yes,
I don't think I'll be bothering, thanks.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. You don't walk 20 miles a week like I do.
They bring the Teletubbies back. I mean, you could just go and work for them. They wouldn't even give you a costume.
I'm not even going to respond to that because, this is a serious issue. But you see, what happens is whenever I try to address a serious issue with you, when you know you're failing in it and you're not up to scratch, you try to make fun of it. You think that your wit and your brain
I just think there's a certain irony about the fact that you go around suggesting to people how they should live their lives, how they should keep fit, and how they should copy you, because they end up looking like you as the kind of that's the dream at the end of the 4 years of hard work. Why on earth would they bother?
I shall ignore all that. Now, what it says is office staff should spend at least 2 hours a day on their feet to combat health problems. This is an official recommendation now coming from sort of government health ministers. And for once, I agree with these public health people because you can tell.
Because most of the time you don't agree with them.
You can tell how people's bodies are misshapen by the fact that they sit all day hunched over laptops.
Yes.
It was okay in the days when, you actually sat at a desk and you could, your back could be upright like you had a broom down the back of your shirt or something like that. But these days, it's the curvature of your back, curvature of your spine. People will be crippled by the time they're 60.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that...
Well, it's important how you sit here in the studio as well, because don't forget, we're sitting here... I mean, I'm sitting here for 5 hours a night. You're sitting here for 3 hours a night.
Yes.
It's quite important that you sit properly. You'll notice that I'm sitting much more upright than you are.
But what they're saying is, and I
noticed you didn't notice that, actually, did you?
What was that?
I said, I'm sitting much more upright than you are.
No, you're
kind
not.
of hunched
No,
over.
you're not. No, I'm not hunched over.
Now you've just straight up.
No, I pull my microphone over nearer to the edge of the desk than you do. You lean in towards the desk. But look, if you get this absolutely right, you should stand for 2 hours a day. Why can't you have a desk that instead of having little legs on it that goes to your waist level, you can have a desk that goes to your shoulder level?
Well, funnily enough, you say that. Some offices have now got that. There are some offices, because you know how they brought in this hot desking thing a few years ago where nobody really has a desk anymore.
That's right.
Whoever happens to be in, and we do it here at talkSPORT because it's a 24-hour operation, so nobody really has a desk, which some people don't like, because a lot of people are very territorial, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they like to put pictures on their desk, they like to put, personal items on their desk, they like to put little trinkets around their computer and little stickers and things like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you don't allow people in an office to do that, you create a kind of impersonal situation. And I think it's quite nice for people to have individual desks and individual workstations. However, some places are now, because of that, because it's not possible now to get a desk for absolutely everybody, they find it easier just to have people to have standing workstations. And they don't need a PC anymore, because you've either got a laptop or you've got an iPad or something you can use, so you don't actually need to have a stationary computer.
Well, the more of those, the better. I know what you mean about, you see, with a computer, what do you call this? What is it?
Well, it's a desktop computer, basically.
Desktop computer, that's what I was looking for. Not a laptop, desktop computer. Now, do you remember in the early days when these were installed in newsrooms?
Yeah.
I remember there was a lad called Keith from The Sun.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name now, with big, thick glasses.
Well, give his last name away.
Well, I can't even remember what it was. He's been dead for years. He was a chronic alcoholic.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Of course he was a chronic alcoholic.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
I told you that story the other day, though, about a friend of ours who we've been talking about as if he was dead, and in fact it turns out he's not dead, so you must be careful. Don't say his name. No, I'm not going to say his name.
Okay, anyway.
He's not dead.
But this lad, when he first went to, I think it was Wapping, when the Sun was the first newspaper to move into high technology and computers and all that. So he sat at his desk on day one, he knocked out a few stories on a keyboard rather than a typewriter the first time. Yeah. When he came in the next day, he insisted that the person sitting at that desk should move, because it was his desk.
Right.
And he would not accept that the story he'd typed was not contained in the desktop computer on that desk.
Isn't that funny?
What he didn't understand was that there was a central brain, and it didn't matter which desk you went to, if you logged in, you could find that story.
Right.
And he had a fight with this bloke. He was obviously intoxicated, because he was going to the pub before work, even though work didn't start till 10 o'clock. And he had a punch-up. He wrestled this man off his seat to get him out of his desk.
It was amazing. Well, a friend of mine was one of the trainers of everybody, because he came from Australia, and Murdoch hired a load of people from Australia to train everyone on these ATEX machines and everything else. Sure. And basically, he said that there were some hilarious moments where, for example, they'd have these little tutorials and they'd be teaching people how to send messages to each other within the system and all that. And people were like, why can't I just shout across the room like I used to? And it took a long time for people to get into that kind of habit of understanding that everything was now becoming electronic.
But let me tell you how it goes with the way you're sort of sitting before I pointed out to you what the problem is. Right, your head increased chance of blood clots, which causes strokes because your head's down all the time.
Yeah.
In your neck,
Well, if you're aiming any of this at me, by the way, you don't forget I don't work in an office, OK? I work in a radio studio for 5 hours a night. I come in for a little while before I do that.
Yeah,
but
and then you're hunched over a
well, no, I'm
computer.
not really, because I'm not hunched over a computer at all. I mean, the amount of time I spend sitting at a desk in terms of writing on a computer is probably less than 20.
This is for your average office worker then, OK?
Right.
In the neck, you get stressed muscles, which lead to pain. In your back, you get pressure on the spine, which compresses your discs.
Yeah.
Your lungs are at risk of pulmonary embolism doubles.
Just cheery, isn't it?
Yeah, that's blood clots on your lung. Your stomach becomes obese, and colon cancer risks increase because all sorts of stuff in your intestines, which should be flushed through your body, just stays around because you're not exercising. Right. In your feet, you get poor circulation, and that can cause numbness. In your legs, you get fluid collecting around your ankles, OK? And in your arms, you get blood pressure problems. Now, what to do to get rid of all this is you stand during phone calls. Yeah. That's what you should do. When the phone rings, stand up. Take a break from a computer every 30 minutes. Well, you can't always do that, if you're busy.
Well, also, not if you're working. I mean, the thing that this will affect, the people that this will affect the most are people who work in sort of call centres and places like that, where they're literally not allowed to get up, not allowed to move away from their computers. Because one of the things I always used to do when I was working in my last proper job, I suppose you might say, when I was working in Scotland as the programme director of that radio station, and when people I used to make people call me on my mobile phone so I could actually get up, walk around while I was talking. Yeah. Quite often walk outside the building and have a cigarette.
So, exactly.
And actually that was much better.
So it's just an excuse to get outside and have a cigarette, really?
Well, no, but it was a good excuse
Fag Ashrill, that's what it should be called.
It was actually a good excuse to get all the things moving that you've said are bad. So it's actually better to go out for a cigarette than it is to sit down inside.
You should use the stairs instead of the lift, OK?
Yeah.
You should have walking meetings. So when you're having a meeting, don't sit down in an office, but walk around the corridors and talk to people. That sounds a bit mad to me.
Yeah, it does a bit.
You should walk to colleagues' desks rather than emailing them. Well, it took me years to accept the principle of the email in office, because what you just said about why don't you shout across the room and say, hey, have you got that story? Come on, it's 12:20, we're on deadline or something,
Right. Well, the thing is, it's funny now, isn't it? Because, I mean, if you talk to, say, younger journalists at all, they basically they'll quite often write an entire story without actually speaking to anyone. They'll exchange emails. Yeah. They'll send an email in to somebody they want to ask a question of. Yeah. If they get the email response back, they write the story. You and I would spend hours tracking people down either in person or on the phone.
It's true. Now, there is a colleague in this office.
Paying any attention
I am paying attention.
No, I can tell, because I can see when you're looking down and you're moving on to the next subject that anything that I say is going to be completely and utterly irrelevant to you.
Well, a lot of what you say is irrelevant, but I do take in the finer points of it. Now, there is a colleague in the office here, and good colleague and all that kind of stuff, who years ago brought in this ridiculous, stupid-looking little chair that you don't sit on, you kneel on.
Oh, I saw that, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
And everybody...
Well, there was somebody here who used to use it because he had a bad back, and you had to kind of lean forward in it, and it didn't support your back, it basically supported your knees and your hips, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, this silly little chair was used by one particular member of the staff.
You're not going to give his name away, are you?
No, I won't. And everybody talked the mickey and all that. Well, it appears that this sort of chair thing now should be more extensively used. The thing is, when our colleague became a sort of manager on the floor...
Are you saying that you're now going to be identifying him?
No, I'm not going to say I'm identifying him. He then became known as head of chairs, which is very... What are you laughing at?
Because you're now identifying him.
No, I'm not identifying him.
Yes, you are.
How would our millions of listeners know...
Oh, look, here's the chair. The executive producer just brought the chair in.
There it is,
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take a picture of you in the chair.
No, I'm not going to lean on that.
I'm going to send it out.
No, you look like an oaf if you...
No, you look like an oaf anyway. I mean,
No, don't be ridiculous.
I'm not saying now while we're on the radio, but when we stop for a moment, which we'll do soon.
I'm not sure about that. You see, what does that... Describe that to our millions of listeners.
Well, to me, it looks like some kind of device for having sex in, to be honest.
Yeah, just a bit.
It looks like one of those things you'd see in one of those dungeons. I'm not quite sure what you're supposed to do with it.
In fact, you'd be leaning forward on this and people...
Yeah, well, no, you lie somebody back on it. I mean, I don't know. First time I saw it, I had no idea what you would do with something like that, you know?
But anyway, look, I mean... I don't suppose there's any reason why we can't identify Mike Bogle as head of chairs, can we? Because it's a position, and we have to respect it.
Yeah, in fact, absolutely right. Thank you so much for that. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Bogle is indeed the head of chairs.
What's chair called?
I don't have no idea.
You must be able to find a name for it on the computer somewhere.
I'm sure that somebody who sees it will be able to tell me.
It's a weirdo chair.
It can't be the only place that's got one of those chairs.
But you're right. It does. It looks like a sexually deviant piece of furniture. No, it does.
It does. I mean, as as you saw when I was about to sit on it, I actually sat the wrong way round on it because I have no idea what to do. Anyway, if anybody knows what the name of this chair is, I've tweeted it out at the two mics, so please, by all means, inform us. Now, let's go back to that story, intriguingly, that you were talking about a little bit earlier on, about the walking fish.
How about this? A walking fish that can move across dry land, making its way to Australia from Papua New Guinea, and it's going to pose a threat. Yeah, Papua New Guinea. Yeah. And it's going to pose a threat to local birds and marine life. And this is what scientists in Australia are warning. It's called the Climbing Perch.
Right.
And the Climbing Perch, which is known by its Latin title, Anubis testudineus.
Oh, yeah.
Anubis testudineus.
I'll take your word for that.
It is. It's Anubis testudineus. Is an invasive and aggressive freshwater species. Drags itself between waterholes. It can hibernate in the mud of dry creek beds for up to 6 months. It's already made its way to the islands off Australia, and scientists who are monitoring it says its progress. Scientists who've been monitoring its progress believe it can survive in salt water. It's likely to head for the Australian mainland. It might even catch a ride in a fishing boat.
Wow.
Seriously.
So does it climb up the outside of the boat then? Is that what it does?
It leaps into the boat. It leaps into the boat,
so it can jump as well as climb.
It can jump as well as climb. It's a very active fish.
Right.
And
is it dangerous then? What's the problem with this fish coming over to Australia?
Because it's bigger and more aggressive, it overpowers native species in new environments. It can destroy larger creatures by swallowing up after being swallowed to block the predator's throat. I mean, this is a dangerous fish.
Does it have like a cutlass in its mouth?
No. It's literally if a predator like a seabird or something picks it up, then what happens is...
and then drops it.
No, picks it up and puts it in its throat and swallows it.
Right.
Then the defensive mechanism in this weird fish, which is called Anubis testudineus, is it swells up in the throat and the bird suddenly can't breathe and falls out the sky.
Oh, I see. So it makes itself larger, so it can't be eaten.
It does. It
wow.
does. Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? Doesn't that make you feel that kind of evolution is a wonderful thing?
Not really. It says the fish can survive for up to 6 days without water. It's been discovered on 2 small Australian islands recently.
And it's reached Indonesia, I'm told, as well.
Yeah, that's right. And some scientists working with local communities on the islands to help prevent it advancing further. I mean, blimey, it's a real threat. Literally to mankind.
I don't think it's going to be that bad of an idea,
No, if this got out of control, just imagine if these blinking things were,
Well, how's it going to be a threat to mankind? What do you think, there's going to be like thousands of these things suddenly marauding up the beach and taking over Sydney or something?
No, not taking over Sydney, but it could kill all other wildlife, couldn't it? From its aggressive nature of overpowering other local species.
Yeah, but the thing about evolution...
Very worrying, in my view.
The thing about evolution in the environment is that there's almost certainly going to be something that then can counter it. For example, if it lands on, I don't know, Tasmania or something like that, then the Tasmanian devil may suddenly decide it's going to start eating it, and it won't care if it blows up.
Sorry,
in its throat,
what is the Tasmanian devil?
Tasmanian devil, it's like those little funny furry creatures that run around in Tasmania.
Never heard of that.
You never heard of those?
No.
No, and they've got those massive big lizards there as well. So I mean, if it's going to try and take on some of the bugs and the creatures in Australia and Tasmania, places like that, I don't think it will do very well, to be honest.
But nevertheless, it's an aggressive species which nobody wants and nobody should have. Talking about that, this all
How'd you come across these stories anyway?
Well, because I was researching my. You know that on the quiet, I'm a bit of an anthropologist as well.
Are you?
Yeah.
I've heard people say that about you, but I've always said that's not true.
What do you mean?
When people go, Mike Parry's a bit of an anthropologist, I always say,
well, that's a compliment. They say that's a compliment. Fair. You've got to know about where you came from, Mike, because if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going to.
That's true.
Okay?
My father used to say that.
Now, we have found, or not me, I haven't found it, but anthropologists have found a new species of prehistoric ape man.
Prehistoric ape man?
A prehistoric ape man has been found, yeah, seriously.
Is that? I tweeted out a story, actually, about that a little bit earlier on today.
Is
that the Anglo-Saxon man they found?
No. This is an early human who lived in Africa 3.5 million years ago. Can you imagine living 3.5 million years ago?
No, I can't.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
What do you think it would have been like?
Well, like an ape. That's why it's a new species of prehistoric ape man, isn't it?
I see, right. Because I'm talking about something that I sent out a little bit earlier on, which was this. The face of a Saxon man buried for 1,000 years has been recreated, which is quite an interesting story. Really? I thought you might quite like that one. Wow. But anyway, tell us more about your guy first.
Right, this thing is... let me see. No. Now, they found this in Ethiopia, okay?
Yeah.
And let me describe it to you. From what they could, because they found a bit of the jawbone. Now, it's known, this is a very long name, but this is the Latin name for it that the anthropologists use. They use the Latin language.
Right.
It's known as the Australopithecus deiremida, which is... what are you laughing for? What are you laughing for?
Just say that again. I didn't get all the syllables down. Australopithecus deiremida, which is Latin for the ape man. Okay.
And his jaw and teeth were unearthed in Ethiopia. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, he was only 3 foot tall, so they were pygmies. Because obviously in development we get taller, don't we, as each generation goes through.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Why are you looking at me like that for?
Because I don't know what stupidity you're trying to introduce into a serious subject again.
Well, then, does it mean perhaps that shorter people are less evolved than taller people, then?
No, what I'm saying is it was 3 foot tall when it stood on its hind legs, but
Yeah.
it wasn't always on its hind legs. It used to scamper around a bit like a monkey, you know?
Right.
And it would also suddenly shoot up trees for some unknown reason. I don't know why it would do that. And
Probably it was being chased by a leopard.
Well, maybe,
I would
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, well, it got chased by larger creatures. This is the anthropological report.
Yeah.
Who were out to get him, including, you're absolutely right, saber-toothed cats used to chase after them. They were 4 foot tall themselves at the shoulder and stalked the forest in packs. There were also large horned crocodiles in the rivers, giant hyenas.
What?
Giant hyenas.
Hyenas?
Hyenas, yeah. And early lions.
Early lions? Would that mean lions that come out early in the morning?
Well, you know what I mean, like the early version of a lion. So, I mean, nature is wonderful, you're absolutely right. And what you said before
Hey,
about...
did you see that story, by the way, about the guy who's a former member of the Lost Prophets, you know, that band that unfortunately got involved in something which wasn't very good, but he wasn't involved in it.
Yeah.
And he got stalked by a mountain lion. He was out running in the hills above somewhere in California.
Oh, that's a very old story, isn't it?
No.
I'm sure it is.
No, it only just happened.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I thought that was an old story about him. How did he survive?
Well, he basically sort of threw rocks at this thing. He said he came through this misty passage and suddenly there was this mountain. He was aware of the fact that there was this mountain lion there. And he was on a sort of sponsored run of some kind.
Yeah.
And he stopped and he started to try and kind of, outsmart the beast by sort of snarling at it.
Sure.
And at one point he picked up a pointed stick and tried to sort of, sort of almost be lion tamer-like with it. But he said all of that seemed to antagonise the lion a bit. And it was only when he decided to start throwing rocks at it that it ran off and he managed to get away.
Well, throw a few rocks at a mountain lion, it runs away. I tell you what, I've, just in case I ever find myself being stalked by a grizzly bear, which is my greatest nightmare.
It's not very likely in Epsom, really, is it?
Well, no, it's not, I agree. But, these things happen sometimes. You go to America or something like that, or maybe some part of the world where you don't realise there are bears. I know exactly how to...
What's that over there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a grizzly bear.
It's a bear, yeah. I know exactly how to defend myself now.
Do you?
You know what bears do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most brutal way to die. Oh, by the way, talking about polar bears, right?
We're talking about polar bears.
Polar bears are the only animal that's got hairs on its feet. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
It's the only animal on Earth that,
Is that right?
that has hair growing out of its feet.
Doesn't it have pads? Like,
no, it doesn't have pads.
Like
no,
most creatures?
No, it doesn't have pads. It has hair.
Really?
Because it's needed to grip on the ice, because it's the only animal that lives on ice, you see.
Well, pads would grip on the ice, wouldn't they?
No, they wouldn't. No, they'd slide off.
Because if you had hairy feet, surely you'd be better off wearing a pair of plimsolls, which is what pads are like, aren't they? Pads are more like plimsolls.
Honestly.
They are.
I don't know why I bother sometimes.
They are.
What I'm saying about the grizzly bear is, do you know how to defend yourself?
Have they got hairy feet as well?
No, they haven't. Do you know how to defend yourself against a grizzly bear?
There are two pieces of advice of what you're supposed to do. You can either play dead, which is something I've never felt quite comfortable about, because I don't like the idea of lying there while the bear kind of sniffs around you to see if you're actually dead. And if you are dead, it walks away. Or you're supposed to jump up and down and act like a maniac.
No, that's
it off.
No, that's not good.
Well, that's one of the pieces of advice they give you.
Well, I don't know which idiot advised you to do that,
it was the people in places where there are bears.
No, I took my advice from real experts. First of all, if a bear gets you, it's the most gruesome death, because bears like eating their victims alive.
Yeah.
They're like warm meat.
Right.
So what they do is, the bear, just imagine Yogi Bear, right? Not that he was aggressive or anything like that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, not really.
But he had a bear shape.
Yeah, he was shaped like a bear.
And so he would lift his left foot and he'd put it on your back to hold you down, right? Hold you down on the floor.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the terror you'd be in then?
Well, while telling you a load of jokes.
No, you idiot. I'm saying it's just a bear shape.
Yeah.
So he'd put his left foot on your back to keep you pinned to the floor.
Hey, boo-boo. Sorry.
It's just because it's a bear shape, okay?
Right.
It's a bear shape.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so just imagine a grizzly bear then, okay?
Okay, all right.
So the left foot is on your back to keep you pinned down.
I'm still thinking of Yogi Bear
with his right claw, he then literally scrapes the flesh off your buttocks, right? What are you laughing at? What's your problem?
All I can see is Yogi Bear doing this. Now, I can't think of a bear doing it.
I'm not talking about Yogi Bear, you idiot. I only used him as an illustration because he's the shape of a bear.
Okay, all right, carry on.
So he's got his left foot on your back.
Right.
With his right claw, he is literally like using your buttocks as sort of...
Yeah, they have to be your buttocks.
Well, yeah, because they're the fleshiest part of the body.
Okay, all right.
And that's what they like.
Yeah.
And so they use that as the sort of the breast meat of a chicken or something like that. You see what I mean?
So how are you supposed to stop this happening then?
Well, what you do is, if you're ever approached by a bear, what a bear is frightened of, this is the crucial factor to remember if you're ever... Do we have to do this? We have to belittle the whole concept of what I'm trying to explain.
Well, you might be frightening people otherwise.
I could be saving people's lives now if they're listening.
All right.
If they found themselves in this position. The only thing a bear is frightened of is a creature taller than itself.
Right.
So what you have to do
You're
is...
in trouble then, aren't you?
It's just one cheap joke after another, isn't it? It's just one cheap joke.
Sorry.
Just one cheap joke.
Okay, go on.
Another,
Sorry.
You know?
So how do you make yourself taller then?
What you have to do is you have to, like, if you're out camping, you've got a tent, and you see the bear approaching. Pick up the tent, right?
Yeah.
And hold it on two large sticks, like about 4 foot, which you should have in preparation, waiting.
Right. So you've always got to have the long stick.
Yeah, you have the long sticks. Yeah, and what you do is you hold your tent up on long 4 foot long sticks above your head, and wave it around like it's part of your body.
Okay, right.
And then you become bigger than the bear.
Yeah.
You become bigger than the bear, and the bear runs off.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Alternatively, I suppose if you had a gun, you could just shoot it.
Well, obviously, if you had a gun, you would shoot it, but not a lot of people who go camping, have got a gun.
No.
But that is the only way...
Well, I think if you were going camping in a place where there were bears, you might want to take a gun.
Well, supposing you couldn't get to your gun or something like that, you just have to lift your tent up.
You can't get to your gun, but you can get to the tent and put some poles underneath it and lift them up.
These things happen. You might, for instance, the bear might have swiped you and knocked your gun out your hand or something like that, in which case this would be second form of defence or something like that.
I suppose it might be.
But no, it's the only way you can...
Because there was a terrible story a few years ago of a woman, a couple who actually went camping in the woods somewhere up near north of Oregon or Wyoming or something like that. And the woman was asleep next to her husband, stroke boyfriend, whoever he was, and she woke up and the bear was eating her boyfriend.
God, that's not nice.
And she just lay there, right? And this was how she managed to survive. She just lay there and pretended she was dead. She didn't move. She couldn't do anything.
Wasn't the boyfriend screaming if he was being eaten by a bear?
Well, that was what woke her up.
Right, I see, yeah.
But, I mean, you soon stopped.
Well, that was a bit heartless not to offer assistance, wasn't it?
Well, she didn't know what to do. You know, what would you have done?
Well, I mean, when you're lying there...
you would have just lain there and pretended you were dead, wouldn't you?
No, I'd have run off because I'd have thought...
That was chivalrous of you.
Well, no, I'd have thought, it's going to take a while for the bear to eat my partner, so I'll just push off out the other side of the tent and get out the way quick.
No, they weren't in a tent. They were just lying in the open air.
Oh, well, I'd been even easier to have run off. The only thing you have to worry about is that bears can follow your scent very closely as well, so head for the nearest river and try and swim underwater for a few hundred yards to...
make sure you keep out of the way of those walking fish.
Yeah, well, that's right, absolutely.
They get inside your throat and make themselves double the normal size and suffocate you.
It's true.
Imagine going on holiday with you. It'd be a real treat, that, wouldn't it? This is talkSPORT Extra Time. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, of course. There's an awful lot of Twitter action on the chair. I've got a couple of people. Alan has sent me a sort of a catalogue version of this chair. £68.30 apparently they cost.
Right.
Only 4 left in stock.
Right.
It's called an ergonomic kneeling chair in charcoal.
Somebody says it's called the earthquake chair.
Oh, really?
Is that a nickname for it?
I don't know. No idea.
It's interesting, yeah. Have you put out the picture of you in the chair?
Yeah, I have. That's what they're responding to.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
What do you mean you haven't seen it? I put it out on the two mics.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, right,
and Roy says all you need now is an earthquake and you're in heaven. But I think that's a reference to something that was misunderstood that I said some time ago. I should really clear that up, actually, because when we were talking about when I was in that earthquake in San Francisco and I was trying to describe the sensation.
Of course, you said it was a sexual experience,
well, no,
didn't you?
That's
really.
Right, yeah. No, I didn't really.
That's why it's called the earthquake chair. I've just cottoned on to that.
What I was trying to actually explain to people was that the sensation that you feel when you're lying in a bed and the whole room is moving around you, the bed's moving, there's an earthquake going on, you're not quite sure. And the closest thing that I could actually kind of, describe it as was as some kind of, sensation that was similar to the sensation you have when you're having sex, but it wasn't like it was turning me on or anything. That was what I was saying.
You're obsessed with it, aren't you?
And I'm not obsessed with it at all.
With the sexual
Absolutely
thing.
not.
You really are. I think you're a dangerous creature.
It's just the only way that I could describe it. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you, actually, because you know how you're always banging on about how Rory McIlroy's done much better since he's been single, which has now been proved to be incorrect. Andy Murray yesterday, I don't know if you saw any of the game, fantastic match yesterday against David Ferrer. Eh?
He came from one set down.
No, he didn't.
He did.
No, he won the first 2 sets and he lost the third and he won the fourth.
Yeah, he nearly lost the first set, though.
Well, he didn't come from one set down.
No, he was 6-5 down in the first set.
Yeah, but he didn't lose the first set.
No, but he nearly did.
Yeah, well, he might have nearly lost the first set. He might have nearly lost the second set, but he didn't. Anyway, the point is that he has not lost a match, do you now realise, since he's been married?
Yes, I know.
So what do you have to say about that, as far as, your theory about single men and being single-minded?
Well, it's fairly obvious to the normal, right-thinking person, right, with a small R, but you can't grasp it because, of course, you are so... you have such feckleness about your whole life.
Fecklessness?
Yes, fecklessness. That's exactly what I mean. Because, you see, you've got to remember, the reason it works for Andy Murray is he's very happily married.
Yeah.
Whereas for Rory McIlroy, he was in a relationship which may have led to matrimony, but may not have led to matrimony, and that was the dilemma in his head, which I think was taking away his concentration.
Right.
For Andy Murray...
So you're saying it's not a generalisation then? Because you've made it a generalisation in the past where you've said that men who are single-minded and single are actually likely to be more successful because they're unencumbered by notions of romance.
Yes, but...
That's what you've said.
Yeah, but once you get married, you can forget about the romance because, the very point of romance is to lead to marriage. Once marriage is there, romance goes out the window.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying... Yeah, of course.
How do you know you've never been married?
Well, I know about it.
Is that why you've never been married? Because you fear that romance will die?
Yeah, so there's an element to that.
Is there?
There's definitely an element to that. I know, having courted many, many very beautiful women, that the chase is what it's all about.
Very beautiful married women.
Maybe
that's why.
Sometimes.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's kind of poisoned the well, as it were, because
you've
seen these women who want to be with somebody else other than their husband.
Yes, that's right.
And therefore you don't ever want to be the husband.
Yeah, maybe that's true. And also...
It's not difficult, this psychology, Lark, is it?
No. I said to one lady once, she wanted to leave her husband for me. Seriously, right? So I said, well, you don't understand. I said the reason that it works for us, and we have lots of champagne, and we have, lots of laughter and, great passionate moments and all that kind of stuff, and we stay in hotels in London's West End and that kind of stuff. I said, that is all very, very exciting and super to you because it's so different to your normal life.
Yes.
I said, but if you left your husband and we got together and then set up home together, our life would become as normal as your life is now.
Yeah.
So
tedious.
Yeah, and tedious. I said
that's the bit that you have to try and keep the spark going.
Yeah. So I said, the best of both worlds is for you to, keep married to your husband, and we'll still have these great nights in town, and when you lie to your husband and tell him you're with your best friend, but you're actually with me. I said that's what the excitement's all about.
Also, they do say that if you marry somebody who's been a cheat, then they'll just cheat on you again anyway. So she probably would have cheated on you.
No, I don't think she would. No,
Why
not
not?
with me. Well, her husband was dull and boring, and I'm not a dull and boring person.
Well, yeah, but you've just described how the relationship can become dull and boring.
Yeah, it wouldn't with me. I'd have kept it going. That's not the point. But I do think that... I believe in years to come, everybody will marry at least twice during their lifetime for a number of reasons. Firstly, they'll be married so long in their first marriage, say 40 years, which won't be unusual soon, that it simply will just have fizzled out and they just get bored with each other.
I've seen some studies that say 3 times. The first marriage you have where you don't actually end up having any children, you just get married very young. Second marriage you have children, and then third marriage you have after your children have grown up and they've moved away and everything else goes on.
But what I was going to say is it could either be that, or it could be that when we're all averagely living up to 100, which will be in about 2 decades' time, then the possibility is, for reasons of disease or car crashes or something like that, you might lose your spouse halfway through your life, and you won't want to spend the next 50 years on your own. So you'll have a second marriage. And as you quite rightly say, it could even be a third. But it will definitely happen.
Right.
It will definitely happen.
Now, let me show you this picture, because I didn't get around to showing you this because we were too busy talking about the bears. I've got a tweet here from Ian, by the way. He says, and just think, if Porky's girl was being eaten by a bear, he could take a Champions League final ticket as well.
Oh, dear me. That is... that's
really... Now, have a look at this guy's face. Now, this is the face, apparently, of an Anglo-Saxon man from about 1,000 years ago.
It's good, isn't it?
About 40 when he died.
Yeah.
And he was buried at Lincoln Castle.
That's right. It's a model put together by anthropologists.
Yeah, at the University of Dundee.
Telling you, they're very, very useful people.
Well, everybody who is a scientist is a useful person.
Yeah, but anthropologists are particularly useful.
Yeah. Do you know who built Lincoln Castle in the 11th century?
Lincoln Castle, 11th century. Now, let me just see. So that is in 10-something. That could have been William the Conqueror.
It was indeed William the Conqueror. Very well done. Unfortunately, this is not part of a quiz.
No.
Now, what they say is that he suffered from a range of degenerative bone diseases, suggesting an active and strenuous lifestyle.
Right.
His body was buried in both a wooden coffin and a cloth shroud, and carbon dating suggests that he died sometime between AD 1035 to AD 1070, just before the Norman conquest. Quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting indeed. And this is what anthropology is all about, finding out where we came from.
And if you look, I mean, do you often find that when you look at faces, that you can see, you know, say, for example, a particularly kind of English-style face? I mean, because when you look at that Anglo-Saxon face, and I did tweet this out earlier if anybody's looking for it, you know, you can see people like that on the tube every day. Because there are certain people that you kind of look at and go, that's a very sort of old-fashioned English-looking face.
I can tell I can tell a Russian face from a mile away.
Can you?
Well, not a mile, obviously, because you wouldn't be able to see him. Right. But you know what I mean. I mean, I can see a Russian. I can tell when somebody's Slavic or Russian from looking at them.
But it's interesting nowadays because
after 1/10 of a second.
There's very few faces, I suppose you would say, that are like that. You know, because now there's a much more kind of mixing of cultures and there's much more kind of changing of geographical location for people, and there's not that many. But occasionally you see somebody like that, and you think that guy wouldn't look out of place in a kind of a jester's costume in some kind of castle years and years ago. Yeah.
Do you think when you see pictures, the first pictures ever taken of women were usually in sort of the mid-1800s?
Yeah.
Right?
What you mean when they were wearing sort of long black clothing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And particularly in America and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think women were very good looking in the 1850s.
Well, I don't think
because I've seen.
I don't think they're
any
less good looking, but they're now obviously. I mean, they weren't wearing makeup. Perhaps they weren't being retouched by
but all this thing.
I mean,
even when we see paintings of the great beauties of the past, like Anne Boleyn.
What about Mona Lisa
and Marie Antoinette? Well, I don't think she was beautiful. I think she was very plain.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're very plain. These women. I think that I don't think women became good looking until about sort of 1950.
Really?
Yeah.
But is that because of your kind of cultural bias, though?
Well, what do you mean? What's cultural bias?
Well, your cultural bias meaning that you are used to seeing women as kind of, sex objects or modern day kind
rubbish.
of,
I don't see them as sex objects. I see them as something very attractive to look at because I'm a male and they're a female.
Yeah, but you're used to seeing women with lots of makeup
males
on.
And females attractive.
Yeah, but you're used to seeing pictures of women with lots of makeup on. You're used to seeing women, wearing modern clothes.
Maybe.
And so if you see them wearing, old-fashioned clothes and looking, as you would say, dowdy, because they're not wearing makeup, then you don't find them attractive. That means you don't find women attractive who don't wear makeup, then?
Well, it depends what the woman looks like. If it was Agnetha from ABBA at her peak, she never looked like she wore any makeup to me, but she was a natural.
She wore loads of makeup.
She was a natural Swedish beauty.
Have you ever seen her without makeup?
Well, yeah, but because she's in front of a TV camera all the time, of course she wore makeup. What I'm saying is, she looked to me like the sort of woman who could walk around naturally without any makeup on and still look incredibly beautiful. Because that's what Scandinavian women look like.
So you're saying you didn't like women from the 18th century because they didn't look like ABBA?
Yes, sort of more or less, yeah. But
how shallow?
No, it's not shallow at all. Why do you think I go to Iceland for my holidays quite often?
Why do you go to Iceland?
Because women in Iceland are beautiful to look at.
Well, they don't come from Sweden.
No, they come from Iceland.
Yeah, but ABBA came from Sweden.
It doesn't matter. It's all Scandinavian.
No, it isn't.
It is. It's Nordic and Scandinavian.
Icelandic people are completely different. They look very different.
No,
from Scandinavian people.
rubbish. An Icelandic lady is very, very similar to a Swedish lady.
Really?
Absolutely no doubt about it. I know. I've been there. I've been to both those
blonde
places.
people in Iceland?
See loads of blonde people in Iceland. Of course
you
do. You idiot. You've never been to Iceland. You don't know.
I've been there several times.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, I have.
No, you haven't.
I used to fly through there when I used to go to America from Scotland.
Oh, yeah, maybe fly through. But have you ever spent like a week in Reykjavik?
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't. Of course you haven't. So I've studied the Icelandic nation.
When was the last time you spent a week in Reykjavik?
About 2 or 3 years ago.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
You got the tickets, have you?
Sorry?
You got the ticket stubs, have you?
What do you mean got tickets? What do I need ticket stubs for?
Well, you don't go on holiday. You've told me you haven't been on holiday for 10 years.
It was a flying visit.
Flying visit? For a week?
No, it was a weekend, actually. It was about 3 or 4 days.
The story's already started
no, it's not.
fall down around its ears.
I love the airports in Iceland as well, because they're always empty. There's nobody in them, but they're packed with booze. Well, Paul McCartney wrote it.
It was released by the Beatles.
Yeah, it was on the White Album. Yeah. I agree. But
lovely
what I'm
song,
saying
by
is,
the way. Lovely song.
I thought it was a bit trite, actually.
No, I really liked it.
Sort of shallow. It was like it's just him and a sort of acoustic guitar by the sound of it, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Now,
that's what's nice about it. Isn't it supposed to have some deeper meaning, though?
Well, he wrote it about the
about the civil rights movement.
Civil rights movement. Yeah. I was going to say Black Power then, but it was not Black Power. It was civil rights movement, wasn't it? In the Deep South, it was sort of Black Power. I mean, that's what prompted Tommy Smith, the Olympic athlete, to raise a hand with a black glove on and all that kind of stuff.
Was it Tommy Smith?
Yeah, it was Tommy Smith. Yeah. That was at the Olympic Olympics in Tokyo, I think. But anyway, look, the point of our story is, the reason we're playing that is because what you didn't know and I do, because I keep a very, very close eye on the cultural life of our country, is today is the feast of St. Kevin of Glendalough. Glendalough.
Where's Glendalough?
Well, it's around.
Well, I don't think you should have figured out where it is if you're going to be going banging on about the cultural significance.
No, because he died in 618, so it's an historical parish. You see what I mean, Glendalough. But he is the patron saint of blackbirds. Blackbirds, yeah. Right. How about that?
Well,
isn't that good?
So what are you going to tell me?
Well, what I'm going to tell you is
what happens on the patron saint of Glendalough's day.
Well, the thing is, the blackbird is the most common bird in this country. Okay, and do you know why he is the? I mean, this...
It's in Ireland, apparently, Glendalough.
Yeah,
County Wicklow.
Of course it is, yeah. Now,
you didn't say that.
Sorry?
You didn't say that.
Well,
it's got nothing to do with Britain, then, is it?
It wasn't necessary. Of course it has. We were all one country in those days.
No, not anymore.
Now then, let me tell you this. Do you know why he is the patron saint?
Patron saint? Why?
Patron saint of blackbirds. Because, you will not believe this, he was a monk, obviously...
Yeah, I don't believe it.
What?
Yeah, I know he was a monk.
He was a monk, and these monks spent a lot of time praying.
Yeah.
And what they used to do is... In the monastery, right, this is a great story. In the monastery, old, what's his name?
Kevin,
St. Kevin. What are you laughing at?
Why
are you taking the mickey?
Hey, by the way, see, Lee Clintwood's making a new movie of that plane that ditched in the Hudson.
Shall we just talk about St. Kevin, who is the patron saint of blackbirds? What he would do is, sometimes it'd get really cold in the monastery.
Yeah.
But because when he prayed, he wanted to reach out to the Lord, they used to have praying holes in the walls of the monastery.
Oh, yeah.
So they could actually put their hands out, you see what I mean? To reach out and get into the atmosphere to be closer to heaven.
Okay.
Because they always felt that, being in an enclosed monastery somehow
cut
cut
them
them
off. Outside?
It was too cold. And it was early in the morning, because what they'd do is they'd get up at sort of midnight and they'd pray, and they'd go back to bed until about 3, and then they'd get up and they'd pray again. They didn't want to be going in and out all the time, because all the heat would have gone out the monastery, opening and closing the doors. So they stuck their hands out.
Even though they didn't have any windows.
Sorry?
They just had slits in the walls, right? They didn't have any glass.
No, they didn't have any glass, no.
So what difference did it make if you opened the door?
Well, if you open the door, all the heat from the bonfire, burning fire goes out.
Yeah, but they've already got holes in the walls, which they call windows.
No, they didn't have any holes in the walls, just had chimneys.
Well, how did they stick their hands out?
They stuck their hands out of round circular things in the wall, which were
called
plugged.
Windows.
No, were plugged with a barrel.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So what happened was, he pulls the old barrel top out.
What's the point of this story?
I'm about to tell you if you just shut your mouth and listen. Sticks his hands out, and as he stuck his hands out, a blackbird landed in his right hand and laid an egg in his hand.
Really?
But so as not to, threaten the life of one of God's own creatures, he kept his hand out of that hole in the wall of the monastery for a further 8 days without moving until...
It must have been very cold inside the monastery.
It was. No, it was warm inside the monastery.
Oh, no, but he left, if the hole was open.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Well, he sort of pushed his shoulder in to block the air coming in, I suppose. And because this blackbird had landed in his hand, laid an egg in his hand, he then thought, I cannot threaten the life of one of God's own creatures. So he kept his hand out there, because the egg had to be... kept at a certain temperature, so it would incubate.
So he held on to it until it actually hatched?
Until it hatched, 8 days later.
Amazing.
And then a little blackbird came out, and then he became the patron saint of blackbirds.
Excellent.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, well, marvellous story,
Yeah,
so what do we do to celebrate his day, then?
Well, what we should do is we should actually...
Eat a blackbird or something?
Don't be ridiculous. What was that? Was that a children's tale, 10 and 20 blackbirds, was it? Was that the one?
Eh?
10 and 20 blackbirds?
4 and 20
4 and 20 blackbirds.
Well, that was a nursery rhyme, wasn't it?
Okay. Anyway, look.
It was a film.
Listen, just to give you a few facts about blackbirds. Everybody's fascinated by blackbirds, mainly because they inhabit. Yes, they are. They inhabit the Tower of London, and of course,
they don't. Those are ravens.
Oh, they're ravens, but they look like blackbirds.
What are you talking about? They don't look like big blackbirds.
Look, did you know that Shakespeare referred to blackbirds as ouzels? Ousel, in the Midsummer Night's Dream.
Like Mezza-ouzle.
No, not like Necessities. Honestly, you're a complete idiot. Don't know why I bother working with you. Blackbirds frequently sing after rainfall, the only bird that does.
Really?
They lay between 3 and 6 eggs. They each take between 11 and 17 days to hatch. And Nobel laureate Seamus Heaney wrote a poem called St Kevin and the Blackbird.
Really?
Yeah, in honour of...
fascinating.
Of the Blackbird.
Have you got any more exciting information?
Yes.
Whose day is it tomorrow?
Well, I don't know whose day it is tomorrow, do I? Why can't we just concentrate on today's day? Why are you so dismissive of these things?
Are you sure? Is it Wednesday or Tuesday, then?
That's why you're such a Philistine. Philistine, yeah. Is
it Wednesday or Tuesday, this day?
No.
I've got a feeling it was yesterday, St Kevin's
Day.
No,
it's today. It's Thursday, June the 4th, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more time on trying to culturally improve your
It's June the 3rd,
brain.
Apparently. So it was yesterday. St Kevin's Day was yesterday.
I think you should be warned, Mike, that your regular Saturday night diet of bottle of white, bottle of red, bottle of rosé and a bottle of brandy is so addling your brain now that you've become an imbecile. Right?
Well, there's only one imbecile in this room.
No, there's not.
Fortunately, the IQ quotient has gone up considerably. Ben Fletcher's joined us because he's going to be telling us a little bit about the transfer business and what the rumours are and what the stories are. Ben, welcome. Thank God you've rescued me from any more rubbish about blackbirds.
I feel like I'm interrupting something very special, but the show must go on.
You are. I'm trying to impart some knowledge into old thickhead here.
Well, let me just interrupt for a second. Yeah, some transfer news. The back pages this morning, if we get away from the FIFA stuff and Andy Murray in the French Open semi-finals, there's some big stories. Jose Mourinho is after Radamel Falcao. The Manchester United flop is being described as, obviously owned by Monaco, I beg your pardon, loaned out to Manchester United. And they share the same agent, and apparently he's going to be subject to a £30 million plus bid to bring him to Old Trafford as a stand-in for Diego Costa. So that's one big story. Is he going to be happy, though, being understudy to Diego Costa? I guess he's not really had a starring role at Old Trafford
well, he hasn't
last season, has he?
I suppose the only thing you can hope if you're Radamel Falcao is that your injury is what has made the season bad, and that maybe if the injury recovers a bit more, then he might be good.
But you've got an awful lot of repair work to your reputation to do, haven't you? An awful lot. You're going to have an outstanding season even to get back to where you were.
And perhaps less pressure on him, though, because he has got Diego Costa kind of as his overstudy, if there's such a phrase. Another player, do you remember that Raheem Sterling wasn't going anywhere? That definitely wasn't leaving Liverpool, according to the back of the Mirror. Louis van Gaal is to spark a Raheem bid war. The United boss is going to launch a £25 million move, but Manchester City and Real Madrid are both sets of pounds. So he's going somewhere.
Rafa Benitez said he was sort of interested, did he not?
He did.
In Raheem Sterling.
Which it seems a bit unsavoury to me. You'd think sort of there'd be some sort of loyalty to his old club. No, am I just being an old romantic or sentimental? So he could be on his way somewhere, which would... I don't know quite what Brendan Rodgers would say to that, but if he's unsettled, you don't want to play...
That to me shows the utter contempt in which the football world now holds Liverpool.
Yeah.
Years ago, Manchester United would have been frightened to have sparked a war with Liverpool because of the tribal warfare it would have generated and all that, but now they just don't see Liverpool as a threat anymore, so they just go in and steal their players.
They're not big hitters anymore, Liverpool.
Yeah,
they're really not. They're not in the Champions League. They're not going to get these big players, and, Luis Suarez was a bit of a fluke because he signed for the club before they were in the top four.
He did.
And he was with them while they messed up their Champions League campaign.
And they didn't even realise he was a world-class player.
No.
Took them about 18 months to figure that out.
Exactly. And obviously there was the off-the-pitch staff and the biting and all that nonsense. But, players like that simply won't be coming to Liverpool shores anytime soon.
Yes.
Arsenal have been busy. This is also on the back of the Mirror. Gunners want the con man. Not a player that I'm that familiar with. Jeffrey Kondogbia. £25 million, another Monaco player. He's a central midfielder. He's 22 years old. French international. He's impressed in Ligue 1 in France this season.
Comes from Sevilla, right? This guy, I've never heard of him.
That's right. He's not a player I'm familiar with, but £25 million. And again, in seasons gone by, we've criticised Arsene Wenger for not spending any money.
Yeah.
And now he seems to be... And this is exactly what Arsenal need. This is exactly the sort of signing they need. If true, an anchor in central midfield. Somebody who's actually going to, bring a bit of class.
Have you not got any news? I mean, whenever we try and do these little slots here, we try and give Porky some good news about Everton buying some players because obviously everyone knows that Everton are looking like a bit of a selling club at the moment. Any likelihood of anyone coming to Everton? Found anything?
I've scoured the pages. I can't find anything to do with Everton. Johan Cabaye could apparently be going to Palace. That's not Everton. No, I can't see anything to do with Everton at the moment. I will scour the pages for an Everton-related story, but I've got to be honest, it's looking... hang on 1 second. Romelu Romelu Lukaku insists he's not agitating to get away from Everton. This is inside the Sun.
Exactly.
He hinted...
Could have told you that myself.
Yesterday you said if he wants to go, he should go.
Well, if he wants to go, he can go. If he doesn't like playing for Everton, thinks he's such a good player, he can go to a bigger club, push off.
Well, he's now saying time is on my side. The £28 million club record signing. He's 22. There's nothing negative about Everton, and I'm happy. 20 goals last term. Do you think you can do the same thing again this season, Mr. Perry, or next season now?
More, I would hope, because we had second season-itis last season, and we won't have it this season. Looking forward to a great season at Everton. A refreshed Leighton Baines, who's had an operation over the summer. Lukaku gets his head together. Got a bit of a problem with James McCarthy, who seems to want away for some unknown reason.
Right, well, we're out of time, as ever. There's some fascinating new developments by the looks of it on the Jack Warner front, which we'll tell you about in a little while as well. Ben, thanks very much indeed. This is talkSPORT. We are the Two Mics. Porky Vision coming up next.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch. talkSPORT.
talkSPORT Extra Time. We are the Two Mics, and of course that music can mean only one thing. It's that time of the week where Porky Vision comes into play. Now, unfortunately, last week a few people complained that we didn't manage to get around to it last week because we were very busy embroiled in the old FIFA corruption scandal. So I'm delighted to say that Porky Vision is back, having only missed out for 1 week. So do tell us what you've been paying attention to this week and what's going on out there.
Yeah, lots of really good stuff. OK, just get my notes together here just to find out what it is about. Yes, there we go. Yeah, now. This is the one that I really liked, right? Now, remember once that we interviewed in this very studio Brian May?
Yes.
Remember?
I do remember that. He was a man that was very much in favour of badgers, wasn't he?
Well, he was, yeah. He didn't like badger culling at all. No. But anyway, he's married to Anita Dobson.
That's right.
And she starred in the first great thing I've seen her do since the days of EastEnders.
Yes.
When she was the Queen of the Queen Vic.
She was also in that Birds of a Feather as well, wasn't she?
No, I don't think so.
Wasn't she in that?
No, I don't think so, no. No, she wasn't. No.
You sure?
No, it was two other women.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, she was in Armada, 12 Days to Save England. Brilliant. 9 o'clock last Sunday on BBC
So a bit of
Two.
a period piece, then.
Oh, I love it. I love all the history. And, of course, it all involved the birth of the Royal Navy and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it was utterly brilliant, and people should have a look at it because it was a sort of semi-documentary with that Dan Snow guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think he's Peter Snow's nephew, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
I think so,
I don't know. Is he an actor?
No, he's a historian and broadcaster.
So this wasn't a sort of a drama then?
Well, it was
like a docudrama.
Like a docudrama. That's exactly what I was looking for. A docudrama. She played Queen Elizabeth. Okay. And it was absolutely terrific, really terrific. And on the same night, most people missed this. There was.
Well, hang on. Let's stick with the Armada thing. Was that a one-off then? Was it something that?
Yeah, it's a one-off.
Oh, so something that people can go and watch it. I mean, you're recommending it, in other words.
Oh, I'm saying it's great, but it's too late to watch it now because it's gone.
Well, no, it's not gone because if it was on the BBC or ITV, you could watch it on the ITV player or the BBC player. I mean, that's the value of this little spot here.
Yes,
is that if people haven't seen something, you can recommend it. And then, for example, because I might go and do that, because I don't watch a lot of live television.
Right. Okay.
I might now go and watch that over the weekend.
Okay. Oh yeah, Armada's brilliant. You should go and see it because it's absolutely great.
What happens at the end?
What happens at the end?
Yeah.
She wins.
Who wins?
Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you know what happened in the Armada in the end? We blew them all to pieces. Sir Francis Drake, who was one of the greatest military heroes we've ever had. Okay?
Did they have the scene with these balls shall turn to gunstones or whatever it was?
What's that, sorry?
Wasn't that these balls will turn to gunstones? You know the...
This ball will turn to gunstones?
Yeah, wasn't there supposedly some kind of a game of bowls going on?
Oh, the bowls. Yeah, they're playing bowls on Plymouth Hoe, but that wasn't true.
Wasn't it?
No, that wasn't true. It's just a myth.
So that's not in there?
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay.
On the same night, there was a documentary on Sir Stanley Matthews, the Wizard of Wembley, okay? It was it's his centenary, so the man described as England's greatest winger.
Yeah. You're saying that with some derision.
Well, the thing is, I think Sir Stanley Matthews was only great because he played for so long, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
He played till he was 50, so that was quite phenomenal for a man of his age to play in days when physical improvement wasn't an industry
the
like
game,
it is today.
I mean, the game was not as quick then, was it?
The game wasn't as quick and all that. But, I mean, I'm sure he was a very good player and all that kind of stuff. But I was always a bit wary about, calling him one of the greatest players ever, because I didn't think he was, from what I saw of him in the black and white news reel. But anyway, he was called the Wizard of Wembley because it was the 1953 Cup
So was this
final.
another documentary, or was this a
documentary?
Right,
It's a documentary.
Right.
But the thing is that most people thought that the 1953 final shouldn't have been called the Matthews final. It should have been called the Mortensen final.
No, yes.
Because Stanley Mortensen was the other winger, and he scored more goals than Stanley Matthews. But the point is, he'd been playing for so long and hadn't got a Cup Winners' Medal, and he got one in 53. Right. So I suppose that's what it's all about, really. Okay. Coronation Street's going mad.
Is it?
It's gone mad.
Well, that's good, because there's a quiz on it tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. And the maddest plot ever is that a guy called Michael, who's played by Les Dennis, who I think is, with the greatest respect to Les Dennis, who's a very funny man and had a very great life as a comedian. I just don't think he's a great actor.
No.
And to me, comes over as a very shallow character.
Does he?
And very wooden acting. I think I could do better.
Yeah.
I do, honestly. Yeah, right. I'm a good actor.
I mean, since you've been you've been watching Coronation Street for decades now, I mean, surely you're enough of a personality to say to them, is any chance that I could come up to the filming of it and get a piece as an extra or something like that?
Well, I wouldn't want a piece as an extra. I could do better. I mean, you've seen me perform in some of our Two Mics TV YouTube, and you've seen me in other things which I've done.
The leaping of the post box.
There's
some great acting going on there.
And Andy Townsend and I did a pilot for a show called A Bit Harsh, which is still under consideration.
Is it? How long has it been under consideration for?
Oh, not long. A few months or so.
A few months.
Under consideration from
people.
Not
a few years.
No. From people like BBC Three and Sky Humour and all this kind of stuff.
They're shutting that down. You know that.
Shutting what down?
BBC Three.
Well,
if they're still under consideration, I think it's going to happen.
Well, we'll have to see.
Yeah, right.
But I get very, very big compliments for my acting ability. So I think I do. But anyway, getting back to old Les Dennis. So he plays this guy called Michael, who's just so thick he can't work out that the bloke he's shelling all his money and affection out to, who he thinks is his son, is not his son.
Oh, right.
Because in the complicated plot, he went round to a flat where his so-called son lived.
Is this the guy that you told us about a while ago who came back as a sort of long-lost son? He didn't know he had his son.
He hadn't seen him for 20 years. So he knocks on the door, the bloke opens the door, and he says, "You must be my son." Yeah, OK, I am. Yeah. But he wasn't. His flatmate was his son. But then his flatmate went off and got killed.
Right.
So this boy had to keep playing the son.
Oh, so he's pretending to be his son?
Yeah, pretending to be the son. But
I'm sure you've told me this story before.
Yeah, load of rubbish. Anyway,
is it still going on?
It's still going on. But no, the reason I've told you is that finally, in the series just gone, Michael has found out that the boy he's been lavishing all his money and affection on is not his son.
So he's finally worked it out.
Finally worked it out in his head.
How did he manage to work it out?
Oh, the other guy confessed. The other guy confessed eventually. And also everybody else in the street knew. So Michael was just a blithering idiot because he didn't know. But also, in the middle of all that, everything in Coronation Street appears to have burnt down.
Right.
Because the evil Tracy set fire to Carla's apartment.
Yeah.
And because she got fed up about, somebody getting married that she wasn't marrying and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All a bit crazy.
It's a very complicated plot.
Yeah,
in fact, the independent quizmasters have told me that this is the hardest quiz they've ever had to set.
Really?
Because there's so many twists and turns in the plot.
Yeah.
They're trying to find making any sense of the questions.
Yeah, but when you know it as well as I do. Now, listen, coming up this week, OK.
Yeah.
What day is it today? It's Thursday.
It's Thursday today. Yesterday was St. Kevin's Day.
Now, what you all should all watch, because I've seen it already, you see, because I'm a TV reviewer.
Yeah.
Kelly Maloney, No Going Back.
Oh, yeah.
What about that?
Is this the sort of the
It's a boxing promoter, Frank Maloney.
Yeah.
Now, I knew Frank very well.
Yeah.
When we were in our studios in Oxford Street, then we first came here, we did quite a lot of boxing, actually, when we were experimenting with which sports to do.
Right.
I knew Frank awfully well. He used to turn up in his Union Jack suit, which you've seen him in when he's been promoting. So this is the story about, how the hard-nosed geezer, as he was said, and ladies' man, suddenly comes to a pivotal moment in his life and decides that he wants to live as a woman.
Yeah.
And has called himself Kelly.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible story, really, when you think about it, because can you think of a more macho environment to come out of than the world of boxing?
Yeah.
And to suddenly admit that actually, I want to be a woman, I've decided now to take a momentous decision to transform myself from a male to a female.
Right.
And, it's...
So it's on tonight, is it?
It's on tonight.
Yeah. What time?
It's on Channel 5 at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And it's a riveting tale of, I don't know, enlightenment, fulfilment.
Well, it says something as well, I think, about the times in which we live, which is
success
why,
over hope and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Going back to the conversation we had at the start of the show about kind of attitudes from the Dark Ages about why everyone thinks it's okay, or some people think it's okay to behave thuggishly when you go to a football match.
Right.
This shows the fact that this has been so roundly kind of welcomed and accepted and not in any way derided tells you where we've come to in society. I think it's great. Nobody's making fun of her. Nobody's saying, how ridiculous is this? And I think that's great.
Thank you for your philosophical take on that one. Now, also, you should watch tonight Britain's busiest airport, Heathrow. Yeah. That's at 9 o'clock on ITV, because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's moaning, whinging passengers. And there's a lot of moaning, whinging passengers in it. What they're trying to make out is...
saying Britain's, or not Britain, the world's most quiet airport, and you could have gone about Reykjavik or whatever it is.
Yeah, Reykjavik was the world's quieter, but as you say, a lot of booze. But the great thing about Heathrow is it is the world's greatest airport. Terminal 5 is like a five-star luxury hotel.
It's very busy.
It is very busy, but if you're in business class and you've got the lounge to go to and all that, it doesn't seem busy.
Well, most people aren't.
Well, I know that, and I feel sorry for the people who have to crowd into all those horrible departure lounges. But if you actually go up to the business class lounges and all that, it is brilliant. So I looked at this Britain's busiest airport. Everything was being condemned. Oh, it's too many people. It's too crowded. Yeah. This doesn't work. Your luggage gets lost. Well, just pay a bit more for your seat. Get yourself into a decent business lounge. Get the free drink down your throat before you get on the plane. That eases all the pain. Yeah. That's the way to treat Heathrow. Don't go there paying £37 for a budget flight and expect the Concorde-type treatment, OK? Too many whingers. And that's what I say. If I made a documentary about Heathrow, I'd only concentrate on the business lounges anyway, because they've got a story to tell.
They're the only people that matter, aren't they?
Well, it's not that they're sort of matter, but they're life's achievers. They're life's winners. And
such a man of the people.
And in life, in any form of life, there are winners and losers. Yeah. And the winners win, and the losers, well, thank you for flying Lufthansa and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Except for when we play winners and losers, and I always win and you always lose.
No, I don't think you do. I don't think you do.
It's 6-1 at the moment.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think so.
There you go.
Anyway,
that's
look into the light.
That's
the Porky Vision for this week. Very good, very well done.
Brilliant.
Some current stuff. No old stuff at all there, I hope you noticed, because Mr. Parry has decided he's not going to do that anymore. Coming up next, though, we got lots more to talk about. I'll tell you about some of these Jack Warner revelations as well, just as we speak, right? Associated Press has filed this report on a Jack Warner appearance on TV in Trinidad. He made a televised address, apparently, last night, Wednesday night, saying he will prove a link between football's governing body, FIFA, and his nation's elections in the year 2010. This is what he said in a statement. I will no longer keep secrets for them who actively seek to destroy the country. He said, I reasonably actually fear for my life. Half an hour after the speech aired, Warner appeared at his independent Liberal Party's rally held under a canopy on a residential street. A couple of hundred people were present when Warner spoke. Warner said he has documents and checks that link FIFA officials, including embattled President Sepp Blatter, to the 2010 election in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, obviously, he's claiming this. He's a guy who's under fire. He's now named as one of the people that Interpol want to talk to. There's a warrant out for his arrest. He says, I apologise for not disclosing my knowledge of these events before. And he says, not even death will stop the avalanche that is coming. The die is cast. There can be no turning back. Let the chips fall where they fall.
I mean, this is
amazing stuff, eh?
Well, I mean, what's happening here is that these people in FIFA are in very high office around the world are now turning on each other, aren't they? I mean, these are allegations until they're proven. But if everybody's making very serious allegations against each other, the whole thing is going to explode, even if the allegations are never proven, just through the sheer bitterness that each of them are shown towards the other.
And this is precisely what we were hearing from earlier on from the guy from the New York Times. You know, this is how the US attorneys break down the mafia. This is how they break down these kind of organised crime syndicates, because they start to get at all these people. And let's look at, once again, the charges that he faces, right? One, racketeering conspiracy, I should say, wire fraud conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, money laundering. He denies wrongdoing, but incredible story.
And it's a good job he wasn't in Switzerland, because you know what? On the extradition order from Switzerland to America, Switzerland do not recognise racketeering as a crime, because they've never had it themselves, and so it's not admissible in the extradition order.
I mean, this guy now is saying that he's entrusted documents to a third party beyond his own reach, which he claims will demonstrate, in his words, the link between FIFA, its funding, and me. And he says the documents will deal with my knowledge of international transactions at FIFA, including but not limited to its president, Mr. Sepp Blatter.
It's amazing, because again, when you were talking earlier about it being mafia and all that, what they're basically saying saying is, OK, you can take me out, but don't worry, when I'm gone, the information's done with my lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Well, I mean, he's saying, and I mean, we have no reason to either believe him or disbelieve him. These are just reports coming out in the Associated Press. But basically, he's saying that he's done some of these things because he was in fear of his life.
Yeah.
And if his allegations...
Why would he be in fear of his life?
Well, if the allegations that he's making are correct, that FIFA was somehow instrumental in getting, actual political people and political parties into power, that's an extraordinary thing.
Why would FIFA want any particular government in Trinidad?
Well, I mean, I suppose if you wanted a government which was in charge of a football association to vote in a particular way, then it would be helpful if the government was more friendly than not.
I would have thought you just actually, if the allegations are true, you just bribe one individual who's the delegate who represents Trinidad to FIFA.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose once you get to a point, and we've seen this over the years, haven't we, with organisations that sort of pushed their luck, if you like, because they wanted to be all powerful and they wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong. You basically make sure that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, if it's possible to do.
I suppose if Jack Warner, this is an if situation, suddenly said to FIFA, look, I think I'm going to have to step down as your delegate. Oh, why? Yeah. Well, if the government, the new government comes in, I'm not their favourite, and they might want to replace me with somebody else as the nominated representative of my country to FIFA, then that would be a reason for FIFA to say, oh, well, hang on, we'll step in and see if we can help with the election. Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening.
Extraordinary developments. Obviously, these are just happening as we speak, and so we will try and get more information on them as the morning goes on, and we'll hear from Ben Fletcher coming up at the top of the hour with the news.
It is,
now, that's very, very serious. Now, let's talk about something maybe slightly less serious, and that is why are people afraid of the dark? That's something that that I saw something written about the other day.
No.
And I'm actually not afraid of the dark.
Yeah,
Are you afraid of the dark?
I was talking to you about this. No, I'm not afraid of the dark at all. And I'm not afraid of ghosts either. I mean, I don't believe in ghosts, frankly, although I do believe in an afterlife, so to speak.
And you believe in the devil, because you told me that before. You do believe in the devil, don't you?
Well, I believe in good in good and evil, definitely. Right. I don't think heaven's up there and hell's down there, because if hell was down there, we'd have found it by now.
Yes.
But and heaven's too far away if it's up there. But I do believe that, to use Mr. Brazil's favourite expression, we're only visiting.
Are we?
It's only a visit when you come to Earth. You know what I mean? It's part of a journey going somewhere else.
Well, what does he believe then?
I don't know. I haven't asked him. Right. But it's a good expression. We're only here for a visit.
I mean, you were here yesterday morning doing the paper review.
Yes.
But the day before that, when we were talking about the Britain's Got Talent thing, he made rather an off-colour remark about me. I don't know if you heard it. When I was driving home.
Oh, yes.
And because we were talking about how I was telling how shocked my 10-year-old son would be if he discovered that there was a stunt dog.
Right.
And he said, look at the age of Mike Graham, he's got a 10-year-old son, nearly crashed the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine saying something like that on public radio.
Why? What's wrong with that?
Well, because I thought, one, he would have known that I had kids of that age. And
yeah,
two,
but he thinks
why would he be shocked that I should have kids of that age? I mean, he's about the same age as I am.
Yes, but his children are all between 25 and 30.
Yeah, well, mine are. Some of my
30,
kids are between 20 and 30 as well.
Yeah, but you've got a new set of kids because irresponsibly decided to start life all over again.
Not at all.
You decided after abandoning your first.
You've been feeding him with this stuff, haven't you?
No. You decided irresponsibly after irresponsibly abandoning your first brace of children, you'd have another brace of children, and now you're paying the price for being an old father.
Not at all.
And not being able to keep up with your kids.
I'm enjoying it very much, actually.
Now,
thank you very much.
What you're talking about the dark,
yes.
right? I saw that report. In fact, the reason you brought that up is I spoke to you about it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not the dark that scares people. It's the time of day in the 24-hour clock that dark happens.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, what does that mean for people like us who work in the dark, then?
Well, we're not frightened in the dark anyway, but your bodies are more vigilant at night, OK?
Yeah.
So when your body says, right, close down, time to sleep and all that, you're more sensitive to any strange noise. You're more sensitive to sounds outside your house, to rain falling on the window, to the creaking of floorboards,
and I suppose generally,
and to the rattling of water.
And I suppose also,
systems.
Generally speaking, wherever you live, it tends to be a bit quieter at night than it is during the day.
Yeah, of course it is.
So you would hear, for example, something on the stairs that during the day you might not hear.
Yeah, if you walk through a wood at night. Yeah. It's not that there's things scary in the wood and all that. It's because it's that time of night, your defences are low, and therefore you are not expecting to see things happen, and your mind imagines things happening. It imagines things coming after you, and shadows turning into real things.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that you're tired as well, the more likely at night?
Not really. It is literally the fact that your bodies are more vigilant at night, and it's all about. It goes back to cavemen.
Does it?
Because when you're a caveman, right, you had to light a fire in the front of the cave to keep predators out,
to keep the bears away.
Well, there weren't bears in this country. It'd be more like sort of wild dogs and that kind of stuff, OK? So you lit a fire from the cave. The thing is, you couldn't stay awake 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So you would go to sleep, but you had to be aware of the fire not going out. So, as a consequence, you were very, very vigilant to all noises, i.e. the cracking of the fire, even though you were asleep, the sound of approaching predators, animals baying, wow, like that.
Well, you wouldn't really
that
sleep
kind of
under those kind of circumstances.
Well, you did. You had to sleep with one eye open. That's where the expression came from. Because you had to be absolutely aware that you weren't going to be taken in the middle of the night, OK?
Right.
Now, this all comes from a study, because I looked it up after I spoke to you, from the International Journal of Psychophysiology.
Oh, yeah.
And
a popular tome in your parts, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And what they did is they tested 120 people on 4 conditions: light in daytime, dark in daytime, dark at night, light at night, OK?
Right.
These people were shown 100 scary images, like an assault, 50 neutral images, like, for instance, a household appliance or something like that.
Yeah.
Then they were played 100 fear-inducing sounds, like the sound of a car crash or a window breaking or something like that, and then 50 neutral ones, like the sound of, a television broadcast or something like that, OK? And what the researchers found was there was no difference in response to neutral images and sounds between day and night.
But surely if people are actually frightened of the dark, they're frightened physically of the fact that it's dark.
No, the fear-inducing images and sounds were more frightening at night than in the day. And that's because of the time of night it was, not because it was dark and not light.
Yeah.
Okay?
But if you go out at night, for example, in the countryside where there is no lights, right, where there is literally no street lighting of any kind, that can be very frightening until your eyes adjust to it and then you realise actually it's not as dark. But even then, you would be less likely to be frightened, surely, if you're walking down a street. Because I've said to you before, my street in London, they've now got these very, very bright white lights where they used to have yellow lights.
Right, OK.
And the fact that it looks a bit weird, but actually you now feel much less in danger walking down the street.
Yes, well, OK, that's good. I used to go out with a young lady once who lived in a house which is on a sort of little estate. And then, in fact, it was a lady in Little Neston that I told you about, right?
OK. What was her name again?
I can't. Her name is Trudy, actually.
Trudy?
Yeah, but anyway, now the thing is, when we got back to her house sometimes in a taxi and we'd been out...
Yeah.
That was it. I had no more money left, and I had to get home to Chester. And as I told you, it's on the Wirral, so it's about 12 miles away.
So what did you do?
Well, I had to walk, first of all, down a long country lane to the main road, the dual carriageway, and then thumb it home, which you could do in those days.
Really? In the middle of the night, there were cars driving on it?
Yeah, 2 and 3 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, no problem.
That's a bit worrying, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't get in a car at 2 o'clock in the morning with a stranger.
I don't think you worry about it when you're sort of 17 or 18 or something, But the point of the story is, I used to walk down this country lane, and you're right, because of the time of night... It was quite frightening. It was dark.
Yeah.
So what I used to do is I used to literally keep a dialogue with myself going, you want a bit of it and all this kind of stuff. You know,
just talking to yourself.
Yeah, talking to myself, but making out that if there was somebody hiding in the bushes about to do me in, I was going to do them in, you know what I mean? So you
just to make yourself sound mad.
Yeah, no, to make myself sound aggressive. So I'd say, yeah, come on then, I can see you there, come out, and what are you laughing at?
Because that's ludicrous.
No, it's not. No, it was a defensive mechanism.
Yeah.
So I would stride along very confidently. So I can see you there. Come on, you want a bit of it? Come on, son.
So aggressive, aren't you?
Well, you had to be.
Always been aggressive.
You had to be in case there was an attacker lurking in
Was there ever an attacker?
No, there was never an attacker. No, because it was a very remote spot. And the idea that somebody would be waiting there for me to come along so they could do me in, punch my face in or something like that was a bit absurd, really.
Yeah, it really was. Well, anyway, that's the end of that. We've got many more things to talk about tomorrow.
We certainly have.
It's the Porky quiz tomorrow night, of course.
Certainly is. That'll be great.
Coronation Street.
I can see I've got a real winning feeling about that one.
You could do.
I want everybody to tune in and listen to it live as well as on the podcast. Yeah. Podcast will be out in a few hours, will it not, Mike?
It will indeed, about 5 hours from now, if not before that. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Parry. This is talkSPORT. We are the two Mikes.
Look at the light! Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne, podcast from the two Mikes. It's just because it's a bear shape, OK? It's a bear shape.
Yeah, OK.
All right, so just imagine this show is an inverted pyramid of piffle.
Is it really? When are you going to use your own phrase instead of stealing one from Boris Johnson?
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the talkSPORT app. talkSPORT, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
talkSPORT.